Well, welcome everybody to our May 4th meeting of the City Council of Half Moon Bay. Welcome members of the public. Thank you all staff members who are attending, as well as guests who will be giving presentations.
Que van a dar las presentaciones.
So before we start, Victor, would you like to discuss our Spanish interpretation option for those?
Gladly, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Muy buenas tardes. Esta reunión será interpretada en español. Para poder acceder lo que es el canal de audio de este idioma, usted tendrá que hacer clic en el botón de interpretación, que es el icono, es decir, un globito, un símbolo del globo, que aparecerá en su barra de tarea de la plataforma de Zoom. Cuando vea ese icono, usted entonces aparecerá un menú y luego usted podrá seleccionar el idioma que necesite. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Victor. So we will now call the meeting to order, and could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Rohrbeck?
Here.
Councilmember Penrose?
Here.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Here.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Here.
Mayor Brownstone?
Here. Thank
You
you.
have a quorum.
Thank you. We will now proceed to the public forum. For those who may be contributing to the public forum tonight for the first time, the way to contribute is we will ask you to raise your hand. If you look at the participant list and you can see your name, there'll also be an option to raise a hand there. And each person, we're going to see how many folks are participating. So it'll either be 2 or 3 minutes, depending on how many hands we get. But typically it's about 3 minutes, and there will be a 2.5 minute warning from Jessica. You will also see a timer on your screen, so you will know when you're coming up on the 3 minutes. Okay, how are we looking for, oh, and last thing. Public forum is for asking questions about anything that's not on our formal agenda. So we do have 3 formal agenda items this evening. Talking about a Chamber of Commerce annual update and establishment of a redistricting committee and adoption of the Inera Serrano Presente implementation plan. So only ask questions if it's not regarding any of those. When we do approach those agenda items, we will open up a public forum for each one of those separately. Did I get that all right?
Thanks, Mayor. Just to clarify, that would also mean if anyone has comments on any consent calendar items, now would be the time to share those.
Yes, thank you.
Our first speaker is Anisha Weber. Anisha, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. So hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. My name is Anisha Weber, and although I live in Redwood City, I do spend a lot of weekends in Half Moon Bay. And tonight I'm here as a commissioner on the San Mateo County Commission on the Status of Women. On behalf of the commission, we want to thank the city of Half Moon Bay for acknowledging that mental health is fundamental to the overall health and well-being for all members of our community. As a commissioner on the status of women, I also want to raise awareness of the disproportionate impact that pandemic has had on women, such as although women comprise 39% of the workforce, they were 60% of those who lost their jobs. Women are the majority of workers in high-risk jobs such as childcare and healthcare, and women bear the brunt of care responsibilities for aging parents, sick family members, childcare, and homeschooling assisting. To everyone in the audience this evening, it's good to remember that during these unprecedented times comes stress, sadness, and anxiety. So good to keep in mind these 3 tips of letting people know they're not alone, sharing your own experiences with supportive listeners, and practicing self-compassion. Seeking out professional help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And which brings me to share an important program organized by San Mateo County's Behavioral Health and Recovery Services for this month of May. I would encourage everyone to visit the San Mateo County Mental Health Month website, which provides a wide range of free virtual events which includes youth-led discussion of quarantine diaries, music and trivia for older adults, yoga, pet therapy, and meditation. And I think I can put the website in in the chat. I'm not sure, but I'll put it out there for you. It's very simple, just smchealth.org, and then it's Mental Health Month. And in closing, as the council conducts the Mental Health Awareness Month proclamation shortly, keep in mind that if mental health is fundamental to overall health, then a focus on behavioral wellness is the best prevention. Thank you again for promoting and raising awareness about mental health.
Thank you for joining us, Anisha, and thank you for your service on the Status of Women Commission. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And does it help if I put the website in the chat?
Please do. Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Oh, it's disabled. Should I send it to somebody?
Sure,
Yes,
Anisha, if you could send it to me, I can share it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
thank you,
Thanks.
Anisha.
Next, we have Rick Hernandez. Rick, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, commissioners, and thank you for, hello, counselors and city staff. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. I'm a planning commissioner for the city of Half Moon Bay. However, tonight I am speaking on my own behalf. In the city of Half Moon Bay and in our county, we have recently hit 3 interesting milestones. First of all, a very minor milestone. Half Moon Bay High School's beach volleyball team has won the NorCal League Championship in San Francisco this weekend, which is interesting and exciting for our kids. Also, after 8 years of effort, a big milestone, the California Coastal Commission has passed our land use plan unanimously and without change. Finally, third milestone is if you look at what the Biden administration is setting as a threshold for when things should get back to normal, it's a 70% vaccination rate in the population. In the adult population in San Mateo County, we've already achieved that goal. And it's amazing. And we're on the threshold of getting to a place where things are going to get back to a new normal. One of the downsides of COVID, well, there's many downsides of COVID, but one of the upsides of COVID is that we're all spending a lot more time outdoors. A lot more people are flocking to our beaches. Our kids are looking for things to do. My own kids are spending time on the beaches and enjoying the outdoors in ways that they haven't done pre-COVID, which is awesome. And the beach volleyball team is testament to that. We've had our kids outdoors on the beaches, and we've been able to, in a COVID safe way, practice where other people haven't. It would be great if we get to work and if the city council really prioritizes things we can do to have us be able to enjoy the outdoors, to follow the policies in our new land use plan, and to make it better, not just for us, but for the visitors who come over here. I think this is the time to act. And just want to appreciate all the work that this council and previous councils have put into supporting all the activities it took us to get here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you for your service on our wonderful planning commission here. Greatly appreciate it. Okay.
Next, we have Paul Grigoriev. Paul, you have 3 minutes. Paul, are you there? You might be muted.
There we go. How's that?
There you go.
Much better. Good evening, council members and staff. I just wanted to put in a couple of words recommending that you seriously consider agendizing the new policing power material, the discussion of the issues involved here for a future council meeting. I only received the items today and spent a good deal of time looking through them. It's pretty complicated, multi-dimensional situation. And I think it really merits some extra time on the council's part to discuss it and solicit public input. Having spent days and days and days watching the George Floyd trial and having read the entire report, the Serrano report, I'll call it, of the district attorney on her unfortunate demise, I think it's something that's really important to residents of the coast side and certainly to myself and my family. So I just wanted to urge you to strongly consider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, next we have Crystalline Geet. Crystalline, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you so very much, Council. I just wanted to say a huge thank you for all that you guys do and allowing city areas to be used for great causes and to help support our nonprofits. I had the joy today of being a blood donor for the first time because there was a blood drive at the Ted Adcock Center. And I know that's been going on for many, many years. But it's just really great that between food pantries and school handouts and all of the different things that we have going on with all of our wonderful nonprofits, that you guys allow your areas to be used for that. And it's just a wonderful thing. So thank you very much for that. And then my second thing is just a big shout out that Coastside Gives is this Thursday. 58 amazing local nonprofits are vying for your funds, and whether it's $10 or $1,000, it all makes the biggest help. So please consider donating, one and all who are hearing this, to Coastside Gives on Thursday, May 6th. You could donate online, or if you really want to hand over that awesome check, you can do it in person at Alifano Technologies in the 200 block of Main Street. So those are my 2 updates, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Crystal. Appreciate it.
I just like to say that the website is really, really easy to navigate, and you can give to as many organizations as you wish. And it really is simple, and it's a great way to support our nonprofits.
And improve your tax situation while you're at it. So,
yeah.
Okay.
And next we have David Ablogi. David, you have 3 minutes.
Hey there. Thanks, Jessica. Excuse me. Sorry, no prepared remarks tonight. I think I just want to start and end with the idea of who we serve and facilitating discussions. I received an email from one of your peers a short while ago because some emails went out to another group, and she was CC'd about the ordinance that I forwarded to the city this morning. And she was concerned about facilitating a discussion. And initially I was a bit fussy, but the more I realized it, the more I thought about it, no, I didn't violate the Brown Act, I can't. But what's important is I am trying to facilitate a discussion. And you've been given an ordinance that I have no intention of it becoming actual city law, most likely, but it's past time to take action on these matters. Staff was not elected to change the world on behalf of the people. You were, and I'm obviously speaking to the council. This is an opportunity. I've done everything I can to give you everything you need to take every single event that we're aware of that has resulted in the death or serious injury of an innocent or quasi-innocent third party at the hands of law enforcement, to both start the dialogue and enact some legislation that will change outcomes going forward. Asking/begging you tonight, 2 of you anyway, to get the thing agendized, get it to a meeting. If the city attorney needs to change it to facilitate language to make it actually passable, fine. But it's past time to do something. And we're very fortunate and very lucky because we're a small community and we can make this happen. And then the last thought on this is, if you get it to a public meeting, you're going to get the public comments that staff and you have claimed you want to hear. Nothing will get a better public response than an actual piece of legislation that could change outcomes here on the coast side for people to weigh in on and discuss. Thanks again for everything all of you do. And I'll try to hang up now, even though my phone went to sleep.
Thank you, David.
That concludes public forum, Mayor.
Okay, we will now close our public forum. Thank you. Thank you for all who participate in this opening public forum. We will now move on to proclamations and presentations. And I will start by reading an important proclamation that we will recognize for the month regarding mental health. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And this issue of mental health has come up in a number of different conversations we've had at council. And it's here in Half Moon Bay on the coast side, we've taken a number of actions to support mental health services. And we will continue to. So I'll read the proclamation because I think there's a lot of really good information in here and awareness. Proclamation, whereas Mental Health Awareness Month has been observed in the United States since 1949 with a purpose to raise awareness and educate the public about mental illness and to reduce the stigma that surrounds mental illness. Mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and mental illnesses are common and treatable. Mental health problems can affect many areas of students' lives, reducing their quality of life, academic achievement, physical health, relationships. And 30% of students over the age of 13 with a mental health condition drop out of school, the highest dropout rate for any student group. And I would say certainly during COVID, that is especially true, and that rate's probably even higher. Though 25% of American teens experience mental health issues, rural students and students of color are less likely to feel that they can reach out to a counselor or teacher for support. According to the ACT Center for Equity and Learning's Supporting the Mental Health Well-Being of High School Students survey. And though mental health professionals may be difficult for rural students and students of colors to access, teachers trained in mental health first aid can also act as first responders. And through training, educators can spot early signs of emotional distress and get students the help needed. And whereas reducing stigma around mental health illness is an important element of strengthening supports and services for student mental health, and it is incumbent upon each of us to do our part to share that mental health affects everyone in both positive and negative ways. And whereas National Mental Health Awareness Month provides an opportunity for communities to work together to bring awareness to and break through the stigma surrounding mental health illness. Now therefore be it known that I, Robert Brownstone, along with my fellow council members, recognize the month of May 2021 as Mental Health Awareness Month to expand awareness of youth mental health issues. Thank you.
Mayor Brownstone, we do have Sylvia Tang from the county on the line if she would like to say anything. Sylvia?
Oh, great. Thank you. Sylvia, would you like to add anything?
You are muted, Sylvia, if you're trying to speak.
Don't want to put you on the spot. Nope, there you go. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
okay.
Oh, great. Sorry, I might have missed an email from a Half Moon Bay city staff, but I really appreciate you calling, inviting me to speak. I just really want to thank you all, city council members and staff and the community. We had a really memorable experience, 2018 in Half Moon Bay at, was it Cunha Middle School? And we hosted a kickoff, and I see Joaquin Jimenez was there as well, and we had some great speakers, including Mr. Serrano and some other folks. And it was, it's just, you have a great community, and I really appreciate that you're prioritizing that.
Thank you, Sylvia.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. We will next move on to our first presentation. I would like to welcome Tracy Fetcher from Sonrisas Dental Health and to talk to us a little bit about Sonrisas. Appreciate your being here tonight.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I have just a short presentation that I'd like to share, so I'm going to get that started. Sonrisa's Dental Health is a nonprofit dental center that provides access to dental care and oral health education to everybody we serve with dignity, respect, and compassion. And most of the people that we serve, in particular in Half Moon Bay, are low income. 85% of the people we serve at our clinic in Half Moon Bay. You may not know that oral health affects overall health. 25% of adults 65 and older have lost all their teeth. And one of the main reasons kids miss school is because of their health. And your cardiovascular system is directly related and connected to what's happening in your mouth. We were founded 20 years ago by members of the Coastside community. We started in 1996 with conversation, and our clinic opened in 2001. So this is our 20-year anniversary of that clinic being started there. One of the things that the community members started was screenings in low-income schools. And so we've been screening children for over 20 years on the coast. On the left-hand side of your screen are two of our dental hygienists at Hatch Elementary. And what I hear is that the children on the coast side have less decay because we've been embedded in working in the community for 20 years. So for example, the school secretary at Hatch knows where to send kids who have dental pain and don't have a dentist. We care for the most vulnerable in the Half Moon Bay community. So of 1,866 visits, over 86% of those were low income. We've been greatly impacted by the pandemic with being able to see 23% fewer visits with more staff. We have quite a few more PPE costs, and I want to say thank you to the City Council for your ongoing support of grants to Sonrisas, and we have received special grants in particular to cover some of these additional costs. Dental supplies have gone up over 100% for Sonrisas, but our team shows up every day to do their job. You can see that is the staff in the Half Moon Bay Clinic holding up a little sign you may not be able to read, says I got my vaccine. But our staff were treating patients in full PPE before they even were able to be vaccinated. So we do oral health education and screenings, and we've had to do those virtually. We've done a lot of toothbrush to go kits. There's the picture of Dr. Bonnie taking oral health kits to the fire evacuee victims at the Half Moon Bay High School. I had the pleasure of working with ALAS and Bay Area Border Relief at the food pantry at the holiday time. We've given oral health presentations to children at Hatch. And in 2020, we screened almost 200 children at the schools in your community. We expect to be fully back and doing screenings in person, but we're currently doing them in a drive-up format. Volunteers are really important to everything that we do. You may notice and recognize some of the faces in this picture. This is the last screening that we did at Hatch. And we've got several community members from Half Moon Bay who are very involved with us. It's our 20th year, and on June 5th is our virtual celebration. We're celebrating 20 years of Smiles. I'm really excited. We're partnering with Jetty Way, which is a new business in Half Moon Bay, located in Half Moon Bay. We'll have a signature cocktail, which is called the Sonrisas. And you may or may not know, but Sonrisas means smiles in Spanish. So come to our event. We hope that you smile and that you laugh and that you help us celebrate something that was started by the members of your community 20 years ago. There's a lot for us to celebrate. Also, as Chrislyn already spoke about, Coastside Gives is this week, and Sonrisas would love your support and a donation through Coastside Gives. So we would love to have your support there. So what does Sonrisas' next 20 years look like? Well, one of the immediate things that we're working on is we're doing a refresh of our clinic there in our current location, but we're also dreaming. We're dreaming about what can come for the next 20 years. The pandemic and the realities of COVID have made the need for a larger clinic even more apparent to us. And so I would love it if you wanted to dream with us about how we could do that in your community. Our intention is to stay in the Half Moon Bay community where we were founded so long ago. The support of the city and all of the residents of Half Moon Bay makes a difference. We would not be here today if it were not for the city, and I want to, and for the members of the city. And I just really want to say thank you for all of the years of support that we've received. And we know there's many years of partnership to come. If you're attending this and learning about Sonrisa's, ways you can support us is we'd love for you to attend our 20th anniversary celebration. You can find a link for that on our website. You can be a patient. While we see 85% low income patients at our clinic in Half Moon Bay, we do take all insurances and also have private pay, and we have a 15% discount for seniors. You can recommend Sonrisa's to your friends and follow us on social media. So I want to thank you very much for your support, and thank you for helping us celebrate.
Sorry, sorry, I muted myself. No, Tracy, I really want to thank you for joining us, and I do encourage folks for taking the opportunity on Coastside Gives to make a donation to Sonrisas. It's, you know, unfortunately, it's a luxury for many who do not have access to dental care. A lot of us, you know, have had the luxury of dental insurance, and we get to go for checkups every 6 months and preventative care, and a lot of folks don't. And
that's exactly right, Mayor. Their adults in San Mateo County can wait 3 to 4 years to receive preventative dental care. They can go to a clinic at the county in the morning between 8 and 9 and have an abscess tooth pulled, but they can't get a cavity filled. They can't get their teeth cleaned until they have a dental home. And that's what Sonrisa's is doing, is helping provide that care.
And for any of us who have ever had a toothache, please consider contributing. And remember, in my family, there was a saying, I don't know where it came from. They said, you know, at the end of the day, you're really only as healthy as your mouth. And there's great truth to that. So you have problems there, a lot of other issues. So thank you again, Tracy, for that really good presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. I see Councilmember Penrose has her hand up.
Yep, she does.
Yes, I just wanted to give a shout out to Sonrisa's, and I can do that because I've been a patient there for probably about 5 years. I'm not good with time, but it's at least 5 years. I have had excellent care. And I think one of the things that could really help the clinic is, as Tracy said, having people who have insurance, who are not low income, become patients. That would increase the income at Sonrisa's, and I can definitely recommend them. They've made excellent referrals for me to endodontists, and just keep my teeth as clean and then healthy as they can be. So thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Council Member.
Any other questions from council before we move on? Okay. Well, thanks again, Tracy, and thanks for being here on the Coast Side.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Okay, let's see, our next speaker is from San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board, and we will be receiving a presentation on the Venice Beach TMDL project. And
Mr. Mayor, I think your city engineer is also present to maybe introduce the item.
Oh, okay, great. How about that?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone. Maz Buzugini here, city engineer. Happy to be introducing our partners at the San Francisco Bay Regional Water Quality Control Board. Barbara Beginska and Janet O'Hara have been fortunate to have them here, and we're happy to have them provide us a little update on this total maximum daily load for the Pillar Point Harbor as well as Venice Beach, which is the city portion.
Well, thank you, Maz. This is Janet O'Hara, and I appreciate that introduction. I appreciate especially that you referred to us as partners because we do feel that we're partners with the city in working towards clean water at the beaches. So thank you for inviting us here. Tonight, we'll talk about this bacteria TMDL that has been developed for Pillar Point Harbor beaches and Venice Beach. During this presentation, Barbara and I will talk about this TMDL that our board actually adopted in February of 2021, just a couple of months ago, and it addresses water quality impairment at these beaches. Next slide, please. While he's changing the slide, I can say the reason for this TMDL, which is short, did I say that yet, for total maximum daily load? I don't know if I personally should apologize for that acronym, but I feel like it every time because it's such a bad acronym, isn't it? But we'll get to what it actually means in a minute. The reason we have this TMDL is that beaches in Pillar Point Harbor and Venice Beach that are indicated obviously with red ovals in the slide do not meet the bacteria water quality objectives that the state has for its waters. These beaches have been on the Clean Water Act Section 303D list of impaired water bodies since 2002. That means that they're on a federal list of water bodies that need to be cleaned up. And they still continue to exceed bacteria objectives for Enterococcus, which is a kind of bacteria. This triggers concerns about potential human exposure to pathogens through water contact recreation, and it adversely affects the designated beneficial uses, which is a fancy way of saying that these waters should be safe for swimming, and that is the beneficial use of these waters in state parlance and federal parlance. When a water body is identified as impaired, the Clean Water Act requires us to take actions to fix that problem. These actions are usually in the form of a TMDL, which is short for, as I said, total maximum daily load. And what that is a strategy to restore water quality. It's basically what TMDL is. In a nutshell, TMDLs identify and prioritize sources of pollution, in this case, bacteria. And all of our TMDLs include plans which describe the necessary actions that would bring water quality to compliance. And they all name the parties responsible for implementation. So basically, as I say, TMDL is a plan that talks about what are the problems and where they might be coming from and what we should do about them. Other points I'd like to make before I turn this over to Barbara are that many of the beaches along the California coast have bacteria TMDLs. They all use the same approach as this one. And many of them, especially in Southern California, where the beaches get so many visitors and are such, economic powerhouses, those TMDLs call for way more actions than what we are asking for here. So we consider this a very reasonable approach to dealing with the bacteria issues at these beaches. Another thing I wanted to point out is that in our region alone, the San Francisco Bay region, we have 7 bacteria TMDLs, including some that are under development. And they cover about a dozen different water bodies because we often pair things up into groups and do a single TMDL for a group, as we are with this case, as you can see by the 2 ovals. Also, for this action, we combined Venice Beach and Pillar Point Harbor because they have many stakeholders in common. And some of the actions that are required for one beach are also required for the other beach. Not all of them, but some of them. And as I said, this is a common practice in our TMDLs to pair up beaches or water bodies. For example, the San Francisco Bay Bacteria TMDL has 6 beaches and about 10 implementing parties. Each party is responsible for its own jurisdiction, and but they also work together on data evaluation and other things to try to save resources and get some synergies. The other point I'll make before turning it over to Barbara is that we began working with the interested parties on December 4th, 2019. when we had an introductory meeting there in the Half Moon Bay Library, which I have to compliment you on that awesome library. That is a beautiful building. Anyway, we were lucky to have a room there and we introduced this topic at that time. We've kept in contact and had meetings with each party and asked for comments on our documents before they went out for public comment. So everyone has had 2 or 3 or more chances to comment on the documents and to try to discuss this with us. I will say that due to COVID, we weren't in the neighborhood as much as we would have been had we not had COVID. We would have been over there trying to meet with you in person more. COVID made that impossible. So that's one reason why we tried to share documents earlier with you so you'd have a better chance to see what was going on. Now I'm going to turn it over to Barbara to explain the details of the TMDL.
Thank you, Jan. So for the rest of the presentation, I will try to walk you through the steps we used to develop the TMDL and try to explain some of the reasons why we did things the way we did and what is going to happen in the near future. So first of all, Jan has just described the need for this action for the development of the TMDL. And I would like to start with giving you an idea of the extent of the problem. And this slide shows the rate of exceedance of the water quality objectives observed at the beaches in Pillar Point Harbor and Venice Beach. As you probably know, the San Mateo County Health Department samples water at the beaches between Pillar Point Harbor and Venice and Half Moon Bay. And we evaluated over 10 years of weekly data. The Enterococcus water quality objective is a geometric mean, less or equal to 30 colony forming units measured in a 100 milliliter sample. So the beaches on this slide in this graph are shown left to right from Mavericks Beach in Pillar Point Harbor to Francis Beach, which is located south of Venice Beach. And the axis on the left of the chart shows the number of geomeans, and on the right shows percent exceedance rate. So the blue bars indicate the total number of geomeans we were able to calculate from the available more than 10 years of data. And the orange bars indicate the number of geomeans that actually exceeded the water quality objective. And the numbers above the gray dotted line are the percent exceedance rate. So as you can see, the objective is really significantly exceeded at all beaches in Pillar Point Harbor within that first red box outline on the left. So in comparison, you may notice that Venice Beach is probably moderately impacted, but still impacted with the exceedance rate of almost 25%. What is also interesting that other beaches between Pillar Point Harbor and Venice Beach and also Francis Beach are not impacted. They have good water quality and are not included in this action. As I said, I will walk you through the steps in the TMDL. One important step is to actually identify the potential sources of bacteria to the beaches. So this slide depicts some of the common sources contributing bacteria to the beaches in Pillar Point Harbor. And we use the local monitoring data, previous microbial source tracking studies, and literature review to identify these sources. Sources of bacteria within the harbor include amenities, such as public restrooms with toilet, shower, and laundry facilities, waste pump-out facilities, shops, and restaurants, and also sanitary sewer system, recreational and live-aboard boats, and waste from commercial fishing operations. Also, runoff from the piers and aging infrastructure, which is quite old, more than 50 years old, can contribute bacteria loads. And of course, there is a lot of domestic pets around the beaches, especially dogs. Dogs are often seen at the beaches and in the surrounding areas, and DNA tests show that bacteria in samples are often from dogs. There are also for stormwater outfalls, which can bring bacteria from the watershed to Pillar Point Harbor, and sources in the watershed include sanitary sewer collection systems and municipal stormwater runoff, including, again, a runoff that carries waste of domestic pets and runoff from Caltrans infrastructure. For the Venice Beach and its watersheds, we collected samples from upstream and downstream locations in Frenchman's and Pilarcitos creeks, which drain directly to the beach, to gain a better understanding of what and whether there are important bacteria sources in the watershed. We analyzed the samples for the presence of human, dog, gull, cow, and horse DNA. And we are especially concerned about the horse waste because 2 horse boarding facilities are located just upstream of the beach, and there are more horse facilities in the watershed. So the sources of bacteria that we consider for the Venice Beach is municipal stormwater runoff, horse boarding and training facilities, septic systems, wastewater treatment plant and sanitary sewer collection systems, and of course, runoff from the local landfill and Caltrans infrastructure. So this slide provides a snapshot of bacteria results from March and June of last year, the data we collected. And it shows bacteria distribution by source and spatially throughout the watershed, draining predominantly to Venice Beach. The sources are indicated by the little horse, dog, bird, and human icons. And the bars show bacteria densities, with the red portion of the bar showing the magnitude of exceedance of the bacteria objective. So the data indicate that all samples collected in the upper watershed away from the beach have low densities of bacteria and basically good water quality, as indicated on this slide by these tiny white bars with no red exceedances. Also, please note that there are no human sources in the upper watershed. In the lower watershed, closer to the beach, bacteria densities and exceedances increase, as indicated by the red bars. So we also find human sources are detected in close proximity to the beaches, and other human-induced markers, like, for example, horses or dogs, are found predominantly near the beaches. So when we develop a TMDL, we start with identifying the TMDL targets. And John has already mentioned this a little bit. The TMDL target is the desired water quality for waters at the beaches. So this is what we are working to achieve. And in this case, it's the same as the state's water quality objective. So generally, when data are collected weekly, like at your beaches, the target is expressed as geometric mean of 30 colony forming units, which is calculated as shown here on this slide. And it's calculated as a running average. Geometric mean is considered this way of averaging data that best represents the conditions when data sets are very long and super variable. And we found the bacteria densities measured at various locations at various beaches could basically change dramatically from week to week. If there were fewer data, or for one day point of comparison, the target is a statistical threshold value, or something that we abbreviate as STV. And this number is equal to 110 colony forming units, as opposite to the geomean, which is only 30. And these targets will be measured at the beaches. So it's not the target to measure in the effluent or in the runoff. It will be measured at the beaches to ensure that recreational uses are protected. And we consider that the beach has good water quality if the number of exceedances is less than 10%. So Venice Beach is sort of close to that 10% or reasonably close, definitely much closer than the beaches in Pillar Point Harbor. So with targets set, the next step is to allocate the acceptable level of bacteria discharges from each of the identified sources. So allocations tell each source how much bacteria it can discharge and still achieve the targets, the TMDL targets. And as shown, sources of untreated human waste, such as sewer collection systems, septic systems, boats, and restrooms, have an allocation of 0. And this shouldn't come as a surprise whatsoever, because basically all our NPDES permits that we issue have that restriction. And this is consistent with the existing basin plan waste discharge prohibition, which prohibits discharges of untreated or partially treated sewage into the waters. The wastewater treatment plant, municipal, Caltrans, and landfill runoff and horse facilities all have allocations equal to the TMDL target, which is the geomean of 30 CFU, and meaning that the whatever bacteria load these sources discharge must not result in bacteria densities that exceed the targets in the receiving waters. Again, as Dan mentioned previously, all our TMDLs come also with a plan how to implement actions and what actions are needed to improve water quality. And to meet the TMDL allocations, the TMDL implementation plan focuses on enhancing existing efforts and programs. So we predominantly want all the implementing parties just to refocus or make a little bit more effort into the improving water quality in the close proximity to the beaches. These actions include control of wastewater treatment plant effluent, elimination of sanitary sewer overflows, or minimizing and further reducing the pollutants in municipal stormwater. But this TMDL also includes some additional requirements, but these requirements are mostly for septic system inspections and repairs by homeowners, harbor operations, and confined animal operations, such as horse boarding facilities, which have not been regulated in the past. The TMDL calls also for assessment of beach water quality data and encourages supplemental monitoring to improve understanding of the potential remaining bacteria sources, especially if initial control measures or initial BMPs that are implemented and actions taken do not achieve the TMDL. Finally, the implementation plan offers a phased approach to reduce bacteria loads from sanitary sewer collection systems, excuse me, vessels and amenities in the harbor, and municipal stormwater runoff. If the TMDL is not achieved in phase 1, the parties have to implement additional bacteria controls in phase 2 and potentially conduct more advanced monitoring. And for all this work to be completed, we are sort of setting a target for this TMDL to be met, to be achieved in 15 years or less. As I just mentioned, the implementation actions applicable to municipal runoff are phased, and the city of Half Moon Bay is responsible for preventing or reducing discharges of bacteria to storm systems. By now, you have probably the administrative draft of the Municipal Regional Stormwater Permit, or MERP-3. And in that permit, section 3.14a contains actions that cities can take to reduce bacteria in water bodies. Basically, this permit implements the TMDL requirements. These are also simply existing MERP requirements that cities should consider enhancing or focusing on in areas near the beach with lots of restaurants, lots of dogs, and other land uses that could potentially generate bacteria in runoff. And Section 314 could be basically a template for the city to prepare the initial report that is required within 3 months of this TMDL becoming effective. It's not effective yet, and I will talk about the schedule at the end of the presentation. Again, if the TMDL targets are not achieved during these 5 years of phase 1, the parties have to implement additional bacteria controls in phase 2 and or conduct more advanced monitoring. And we would like you to produce an annual report, basically very simple report. Again, the MERP really describes what the content of the report should be. On an annual basis, we would like to get information about what actions have been undertaken and what is being planned to do in the future. If, let's say source control actions are fully implemented over 10 or 15 years throughout the watershed and TMDL targets are not met, the water board has an ability to reevaluate or revise the targets, TMDL, and allocations if and as appropriate. Similarly to the municipal runoff, the city of Half Moon Bay is also responsible for implementing the TMDL requirements for your portion of the sanitary sewer collection system. And again, the requirements for implementation actions for BMPs are very similarly structured as the requirement for stormwater runoff. 2 implementation phases, they need to comply with the statewide general waste discharge requirement, preparation of the enhanced sewer system management plan, and sort of prioritizing inspection and repairs within close proximity to the beach or in the areas that are likely to contribute or be connected to the beaches. And annually, we would like your report to determine effectiveness of these repairs, assess beach monitoring data, and report on what's going to happen next year. So I just mentioned that this TMDL is not yet fully effective. Our regional board adopted the basin plan amendment, which requires a total maximum daily load for bacteria in February this year, earlier this year. But there are certain steps that we have to go before the TMDL is fully effective. And the next step is to, we are going to the state board for their approval, which is likely to happen in July. Then this will be followed by asking the Office of Administrative Law for approval. Again, probably this is going to happen in the fall this year. And final approval is going to be received from the US EPA, which we hope it's going to happen by the end of this year, or probably December or 2021 or early January. So once these approvals are in effect, the TMDL becomes effective. But I'm actually very thankful for you to invite us to talk about this TMDL, because this gives me an opportunity to provide you with this timetable and basically let you know that you've got more than 6 months before this TMDL is effective, and you can start thinking about what has to be done in order to meet the deadlines for the initial report or the revamped sanitary sewer management report. So that gives you much more time to think about it, to make it happen, and to basically fit into your schedule that I'm sure is very busy. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Barbara, for that very thorough presentation on a hugely important issue. Councilmember Ruddock.
Yes, glad you were here today to make a presentation. I heard a similar presentation as a member of the Sewer Authority Mid-Coast. So staff will be following up with a program for implementation measures to address these targets. I'm wondering though, these measures will cost the city money as well as the Harbor District. Are there funds available to help our local public agencies to implement actions to meet these targets? Like would Clean Beaches or Clean Water revolving loan fund be possibilities for helping the city address these issues?
Well, by having the TMDL in place, it actually makes certain funding available to the implementing parties. John, would you like to add?
Yeah, there are certain pots of money that if you have a TMDL in place, then that makes it very clear to the funders that there's a water quality issue and the money could be made available for that issue. That said, the pots of money that I am most familiar with are for non-point source pollution. So that's your ranches and, rural road repair, even restoration of some areas. And some of those actions can help curb bacteria inputs to water bodies. So that's the Clean Water Act, Section 319H, and that's for non-point sources. If you're not familiar with that term, once you get to a city where you have municipal storm sewers, that's a point source. So it's the opposite of a non-point source. So that pot of money isn't normally available to cities. And, there are new grant opportunities that I'm learning about over time that just seem to pop up. So I'm not an expert on what are the different pots of money out there, unfortunately. That said, it's something that any of us could look into and see what pots of money. If I do find out any information, I will certainly pass it along.
Yes, I would certainly, look at the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund. And then, Clean Beaches. Since we're talking about bacterial impacts to beaches, I'm just wondering if the Clean Beaches program might also offer some funding opportunities. We certainly want to address the measures, the issues, and but if there are funding sources that might help offset some of those expenses, I think it would be useful for the city to know about. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's all.
We will
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Anyone else from council have any questions? Okay. Well, again, very grateful for you to be here to educate us and the public about a very critical issue that affects everyone using our beaches, our residents, tourists, etc. And I know it's been a long-standing issue. We've had locals who volunteer testing the water for a long time, and it's not always so easy to trace some of the sources of that. We have general areas of what it looks like, but it's been a continuing challenge. So we appreciate all the work you're doing to help us with that, to identify it. And I look forward to a day where we can say we've actually effectively remediated some of these situations. So thank you again for joining us this evening and taking time to be with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Okay. we now have a presentation from Samtrans that I think will be of great interest as we start opening up the economy and start commuting again. So, so we have Christy here, and Christy, I think I've met you before on commute.org actually.
Yes.
But you've been there a few times. So,
yes. Hi. Nice to see you.
It's great to have you present to us this evening, and appreciate you making time for us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Christy Wagoner. I'm the planning director for Samtrans, and I'm going to do a screen share here. Just take 5 minutes of your council meeting tonight to update you on our really exciting project called Reimagine Samtrans, and tell you about how to get involved, really specifically here to invite you to our virtual public meeting that is highlighting the coast side transportation improvements that we're considering. This is happening tomorrow at 5:30. I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. Just to orient you to our project launched about 1.5 years ago, and early on we identified 3 goals. Really, we wanted to improve the riding experience for our existing passengers who are riding the bus. Of course, we want to grow new and more frequent ridership, and we want to be effective and efficient as a mobility provider. And as we emerge from this pandemic, it's really important that we double down on improving the riding experience for our current passengers, those people who are still on the buses, who are making essential trips, or who are essential workers who have no other choice. We recognize it may be more difficult to grow new ridership considering long-term telework trends and unknown future travel patterns. But we do think that we can grow more frequent ridership, and that's really important to us as a mobility provider. And we want to continue to be really effective and efficient with our resources. And we want to think about where we allocate our resources and really think about putting those resources in the communities that need it the most to provide the best transportation we can, looking at effectiveness a little differently. As I mentioned, we launched this project almost 2 years ago and really took the first few months to dig into our data to understand who is riding the buses, what is our on-time performance, where are we seeing unproductive bus ridership, where are we seeing underutilized bus stops or overutilized bus stops. We spent a lot of time out in the community. We were out in your community. We talked to riders and non-riders to just understand what do people want and to really identify the trade-offs people were willing to make. Are you willing to walk a little further for a bus that's a bit more direct and more frequent? And then we did some market research to understand the attitudes and awareness of Samtrans in the county. And really, we were moving into the spring of 2020. We had to push the pause button, understandably, due to COVID. Pivot to really support our near-term service planning for the bus system. And we relaunched our project in the fall and took some time to understand what are the impacts that the COVID pandemic has had on our ridership, and have spent the winter months developing our different network alternatives. So this Reimagine Samtrans is a big operational planning project designed to produce a new bus network in August of 2022. So it's a really near-term project. And right now we're in the stage where we have 3 different bus networks that we're going out to the public to talk about and to really get comments on and receive feedback on. And that's why I'm here tonight. We are in the thick of our public outreach where we're talking about our different network alternatives. I'm not going to get in the details of our alternatives with you tonight, but tomorrow's meeting is really a deep dive into the specific coast side options that we are considering. We'll spend the next early part of the summer digesting what we heard from the public outreach, and then we will create what we're calling our preferred network, which we'll take back out to the public this fall. That preferred network will be considered by our Samtrans board for adoption late this year or early next year, with an eye on implementation in August of 2022. So across all 3 of our network alternatives, we aim to do a few things. We want to be more efficient with our resources and our scheduling. We want to think about equity and look at how to improve service in our highest need communities. We want to make sure we are on time and reliable. We know that's important. We want to continue to improve our connections at regional hubs and rail stations. And we want to reduce the duplication with ourselves. So we have certain segments where we have many routes on top of one another, and we want to sort of reallocate our services so we can be more efficient and effective. And with no further ado, just very high level, we have our three alternatives. Alternative one is our attempt to articulate what a really frequent network of buses could look like in the county. This alternative delivers, I think, 7 routes that have 15-minute service or better in the county. But in order to deliver that level of service, this alternative no longer bring service into San Francisco. So that's a trade-off that we are trying to articulate through this alternative. Alternative 2 improves connections to rail in the region. This alternative brings enhanced express bus service back into San Francisco and improves service to community colleges. And alternative 3 retains the most geographic coverage throughout the county. This alternative also reintroduces our microtransit service, which is a pilot that we had in Pacifica about 2 years ago. Microtransit, just very quickly, is sort of on-demand bus service that you use an app to request a trip. It's operated with smaller vehicles. And we are recommending a microtransit zone in Half Moon Bay and in Midcoast. I think it's a really interesting option. I personally think, I'm curious to see what you all think and what the community thinks, but it's not easy to serve your community for lots of different reasons. And I think microtransit might be a really good option for us as we piece together our preferred network. And I'll just mention that not just one alternative will be advanced for our preferred network. We're hoping to advance pieces of each of these alternatives for our preferred alternative. We are, as I mentioned, in our public input phase. We're collecting comments through May 31st. Please visit our website, reimaginesamtrans.com. We have all the detailed route alternatives and our survey available in multiple languages. We have our public meetings. I have more information in my final slide about that. We have lots of Q&A sessions. We're trying to get out there in social media. We're talking to stakeholders. We're actually getting out in the community safely with social distance in mind to do limited in-person pop-up events. We're really trying to cross that digital divide and reach people who may not be riding the bus and who may also not be on their computer all the time. Recognizing that our ridership is still down 60–65% from pre-COVID levels. So last slide here, please attend our meeting tomorrow, spread the word if you can. We had our mid-county meeting last Thursday. Tomorrow is all focused on the coast side. We have it simultaneously cast in Spanish, Mandarin, and Cantonese through the magic of Zoom interpretation services, which is wonderful. And then we will pivot to the South County next week and North County the following, highlighting all the potential changes up there. Please do get involved on our website. All of our information and all of our events are on our website. And that is it for me. So I will stop my screen share if that's all right, and I can take any questions that you have.
Councilmember Penrose.
Yes, thank you, Christy, for a very informative and very complete presentation. It's very nice to hear that Samtrans is trying to find ways to help. One of the issues that you're dealing with that I think is of utmost importance is the equity issue. As a coastal region, we are extremely underserved by Samtrans. You're aware of that. We're all aware of that. What I have not seen done, and I think is critical, if you really do want to find out why people don't ride your buses, is to find out who those people are and what their needs are. So for instance, we have loads of folks, and I don't know how many, this is information which should be gathered, who commute over the hill, one child to a car, to take children to schools over the hill. We have many people who live here on the coast and commute in order to work over the hill. but we don't know how many of either of those groups there are because nobody's gone to the trouble of trying to figure out who they are, where they're going, how many there are, and how useful it would be to have public transportation for them. So I would ask Sam Trans to please gather that information, and that will help to make it a more equitable system. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that comment.
Anyone else have their hand raised from council? I don't think so. Well, first of all, I really echo the comments by Councilmember Penrose. We should always be asking why people, well, what people's needs are and why they are or aren't. Now, that's a really difficult task right now because you mentioned you have a 65% decrease in ridership. And frankly, 6 months ago, nobody was on BART. No one was on any trains because of COVID and fears of, wanting to protect themselves. So I don't envy the challenge trying to figure out how to better service, especially coastside commuters, when so many people may still be reluctant. It's hard enough to get people to even share rides in cars for a while until they feel everyone's safe, vaccinated, etc. A lot of people driving single cars. That said, we are very sensitive to all the traffic conditions we have here in Half Moon Bay. The idea of having express buses, which would serve the coast side and take people up and down the coast side, but just get people over the hill to either the next level of transportation, depending on if they're staying in the county, but to Caltrans, to BART, etc. I think once things change and people are willing to go on public transportation, I think that would be very popular here. But we never really have had express buses, park and rides. There's still old signs up for park and rides, but we haven't really been able to reinvent that. So I think for the long term, whatever that new normal, can look like in the long term, could be terrific. Just the short term could be really challenging. But thank you for, reaching out and doing this work to ascertain at least what's possible down the road.
Thank you so much for that comment. It's very important feedback, and this is a hard project right now, given the pandemic and the changing travel patterns, but it is an iterative process. Service planning happens every year. So, we're looking at August 2022, but, we're always thinking about the future, and we're definitely watching the long-term teleworking trends to better understand what the travel market might do in the future. And I do appreciate the time tonight, and happy to come back and present when we have our preferred alternative piece together later in the fall to get your feedback once again.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Christy. Greatly appreciate it. Okay. Well, that concludes our proclamations and presentations. Mayor's announcements of community activities and community service. Again, it's worth repeating, 2 more days for Coastside Give. Please go on the website. As Councilmember Rarback said earlier, it is incredibly easy to use. And for those of you who have matching funds from your companies, please consider that as well. And also, let's see, also just want to mention, which I forgot earlier, it happens to be Public Service Week in addition to Mental Health Month. Is that Public Service Month or Public Service Week? I think it was week. Yes, thank you. So let's see. I think someone said there's a weird buzz. Hope that's a little better. Anyway, I really am grateful for so many of the folks who are on this call tonight for their public service. It's been very difficult. If you know, all our staff here, members of the public service people have gone beyond. They've gone beyond the beyond this last 18 months is all I can say. And I think I'm really grateful to the Half Moon Bay staff and our council members and members of our various commissions, a lot of that's volunteer work, to put in all the extra hours that they do all the time. So if you know anyone, want to send them a thank you note, a flower, a cup of coffee, whatever, just letting people know and reminded makes everybody's day when they get appreciated. So I thank Councilmember Ruddock for reminding me of that this is Public Service Week. Okay.
Thank you, city staff.
Yes.
Thanks for all you do.
All
And
right.
outside contractors.
Yes. I'd like to, let's see, move on to any report out from closed sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council did meet in closed session last week to discuss labor negotiations with Local 39, but nothing to report out.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to move on to city manager updates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Matthew Chittister has a couple of just short updates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will try to make these very quick. First and foremost, coming to a mailbox near you is our first activity guide since the pandemic started. Very exciting. You're going to notice that it's a lot different than it's been in the past. We used to send basically a magazine to every address on the coast side 3 times a year. And it was full of great programs, great stuff. But during the pandemic, with limited ability to provide programming, we went all online. We know we need that personal touch, that people want that reminder of when new opportunities come. So what you're going to get in the mail, if you already haven't gotten it, is a very small single piece of paper or 2 pieces of paper folded mailer that just gives you a taste of what's to come. And then it encourages folks to come to our website and register there. As always, you can go to our TED Adcock Community Center to register in person if you don't have access to a computer. And by doing it this way, also, we can continue to add offerings and people will be able to identify them on the website. A couple of very quick things I want to show you on the guide. Lots of cool classes. We're hoping to do them in person. It's all dependent on what happens over the next month in California, but we're going to hope that the governor is able to hold true and reopen the economy completely in mid-June. But also if the county gets to the yellow tier, a lot of these things can be done in person. Really exciting stuff. We are planning for our concerts in the park this coming August. We were able to bring back all the groups we had scheduled for 2020. Some really great music, a good variety of music. Of course, that's all down at Mac Dutra Plaza. We're also planning September 25th for our annual Summer's End Music Festival, and we hope to make that a great event. And back by popular demand is softball. We re-implemented softball. It was a big popular thing when I was growing up, and we were able to do that in 2019. It was very popular on a limited basis. This year, we're going to have a men's league, a women's league, and 2 co-ed leagues. So that's the kind of demand we're seeing. That begins in August. Again, go to our website to sign up. If you don't get one of these in the mail, let us know, and we'll make sure we get addresses updated. That is it for that. If you have any questions, go ahead and share those with me while I bring up the next report.
Any questions?
All right, hearing none. I will be very quick with our regular COVID update. We're still in orange. A couple of quick stats to point out. We are up to 74% nearly vaccinated in the county for 16 and up, 75% on the coast side or in Half Moon Bay. That's great news. The positivity rate continues to decline, and total Half Moon Bay cases has not changed in the last 2 weeks. I'm sure there's a few that you know there's delayed reporting, but man, things have slowed down here, which is great. Couple of announcements tomorrow at the event center in San Mateo. You can go between 9 and 5 p.m. and get a Moderna vaccination if you're eligible, which means you're 16 or 18 and up with Moderna. You can sign up at myturn.ca.gov, or you can just show up. Similarly, on Thursday at Our Lady of the Pillar Catholic Church in Half Moon Bay, from 3 to 9 p.m., you can get the Pfizer vaccine. That's for anybody 16 and up. If you're under 18, you do need to come with a parent or guardian. Same thing. You can either register on My Turn or just show up. Last announcement here, we continue to do COVID testing at the Ted Adcock Community Center on Monday nights from 3 to 6 p.m. We are now using Fulgent, a shallow nasal swab, which allows the county to not just identify positive and negative, but also what strain of COVID a person has. It's been pretty quiet the last couple of weeks, so lots of availability, and you can sign up at these websites listed here. And then really quickly, I'll just give you an update on the Coastside Recovery Initiative. It's been about a month since you've gotten a good update. As you know, this is a coastside-wide effort, Montera to the county line and up to Skyline, to look at recovery here on the coast side and future economic prosperity. Couple of project dates and milestones. We convened the oversight committee and launched the project back in January. We held a big community open house in February. The kind of the cornerstone of this initiative is a really incredible task force of 17 individuals from up and down the coast, from a variety of business sectors and backgrounds and experiences and ages. And they're really the brains of the operation here, although I will plug Karen Decker and Erica, who are leading the way and just doing a phenomenal job. But this task force has had some really great meetings. We had a big meeting in February, and then they broke up into smaller groups to meet on individual topics. And so the focus right now is really determining unmet business and workforce needs on the coast. And then in the coming months, they'll analyze that information and develop recommendations for the city council, for the county board of supervisors, for businesses and residents and nonprofits, state leaders, a variety of recommendations to really help us move forward out of the pandemic and into the future of the coast side. We have 4 working groups. Team Innovate, which is really focused on diversifying the economy and sparking business innovation. Team Thrive, which is supporting local businesses and nonprofits. Team Vibrant is looking at creating vibrant commercial and community spaces. And Team Eco is looking at ways to use our environmental assets to strengthen the economy. These are small groups, 4 or 5 individuals that are meeting on a pretty regular basis, formally as well as informally, all the time in the community. And they're really trying to identify creative ways to improve our experience here on the coast. A couple of things that are happening. Team Vibrant has been going on tours. They've done a tour of the harbor, which happened this afternoon. They did a downtown tour. We want to thank the Half Moon Bay History Association for leading that tour. And they've toured downtown Pescadero. And they're coming up with ideas on how to create vibrant spaces here on the coast side and bring our community together and be able to support local businesses. Team Thrive, very focused on supporting local business and nonprofits. Of course, one last shameless plug for Coastside Gives this week. That's one of their focuses this week. Support a local business and nonprofit through that effort. We're really excited about these groups. There's also a 5th kind of informal group, and it's pretty timely. It's really focused on digital infrastructure here on the coast side. And it'll include folks from the task force, but others as well, and representation from the county and other agencies. We're hoping to convene this group soon. And of course, as everybody knows, we had the outage yesterday with Comcast, and it's just a really strong reminder of how important it is and really how it impacts all of these other areas. And so that 5th area will meet as part of the initiative, but separately because it'll involve some other agencies and individuals with expertise in this area. If you ever have any questions or comments, Karen Decker from the city manager's office is our project lead. She can be reached at kdecker@hmbcity.com. And again, we're just grateful for all the community support and for a great task force and great leadership on this project. And that's all I have tonight. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Looks like Harvey's got his hand up. Yeah.
I'm muted. Sorry, Harvey, and then Joaquin. Thanks.
Is there any update on what happened with the Comcast outage yesterday?
Matthew, you're muted.
I haven't received any particular detail. I know Bob and I have both been reaching out to our contacts at Comcast. The last I heard earlier today was they were still sorting out the issue and would kind of update all the public agencies at once. So as soon as we know, we'll update the council, and anything that needs to be shared with the community will do.
And as I've said before, internet access is a public safety issue, and we really need to make sure that we have redundancy built into the system. I feel like a broken record, but I'll keep talking. So good luck.
Joaquin.
Going back to the first part of the presentation about the community activities, looking at the the flyer, I'm thinking about, hey, how about some salsa or cumbia dancing, I think I think it's time we start celebrating together and having offer those salsa and cumbia dancing in our community. Right now, as you know, we have the organization, Alas, who's doing a lot of folkloric dancing, for our youth, for the adults, it would be great, to offer that. Also mentioning softball, it's we were just talking about that, in our community, that's what we're missing. We are missing physical activity for the adults. So softball is a great thing. I'm not much of a softball player, but I'll give it a try. But I think we're missing that. It's great that softball, is going to be available in August. I hope to see maybe some volleyball, some basketball, soccer, in our community. As you know, in decades back, we were big, soccer in our community. We had at least 5, adult teams, in our community. So I actually hoping to see that coming back. We have activities for the youth, for our young generations, but we also need it for for the adults in our community. So let's music at the park, and looking forward to that as well. So some great activities coming to us, late summer into the fall. So thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joaquin. Anyone else before we move on? Okay. Next, we will look at the consent calendar. We have 5 items on the consent calendar. First, I'll ask if anyone on council has anything to pull. No. Any public comments on that? No. Okay. Is anyone dying to make a motion? All right. Thank you, Councilmember Ruddick.
I move that we approve the consent calendar. Item 1A, waive reading of resolutions and ordinances. Item 1B, seamless Bay Area transit principles. Item 1C, amendment to agreement with Abundant Grace for the fiscal year 2020-21 coastal cleanup program. Item 1D, amendment to the professional services agreement with Circle Point for preparation of an environmental impact report. Item 1E, display of the mental health awareness flag for the month of May 2021 at City Hall to commemorate Mental Health Awareness Month.
Second.
Could we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Rohrbach,
Yes.
Councilmember Perez,
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ruddick,
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody. Okay. Now, it is now 8:35. Often I wait till 9 o'clock before I declare a break, but when we're right up on our ordinances and public hearings, I could, if people would like, I could take it now. Any preferences, part of council members?
Keep it going.
Keep it going? Everyone okay with that? Yeah? Okay, so we'll go to 9, see where we're at then. Great, thank you. We will now move on to our ordinances and public hearings. Our first item for consideration is item 3A, Yanera Serrano Presente Implementation Plan. And I believe we have a staff report first.
Yeah, it looks like our city manager may have lost his connection.
Ah.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I am happy to do the presentation in his stead.
Okay.
If you can give
Sounds
me
great.
one moment to pull up some
Bring it up.
documentation, and maybe in that time, Bob will find his way back on.
Okay.
But otherwise, I'm happy to do the report. There's Bob. Looks like he's back.
Sorry about that.
No, no worries, Bob. Are you okay to
Internet
do
challenges. How do I sound
yes. Okay. You're okay to do the staff report for Yanera Serrano?
now? I'm ready. Yes, I got kicked out. Sorry about that. I take it the consent calendar was approved.
It was.
Okay,
It
I
was.
missed that. Great. Yes, I'm ready. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, community members. This item is the Yanera Serrano Presente Implementation Plan. We're pleased to bring this forward to the council tonight. The recommendation before the council has 3 parts to it. One is that we establish a police resource / complaint line, and I'll get into the details of these in a second. 2, that we create a program by which there's new deputy orientation with community members. And 3, that the council commit to $75,000 to mental health services. And if the council makes a vote to accept this recommendation tonight, that money would be put into the fiscal year budget for 2021, 2022. So as a little background, the Yanera Serrano Presente program was brought to your council back in June 16th of last year. It came to the council by way of a 2-page memo or 3-page memo. That memo was attached to your report. And there's 4 components, and I'll go through all 4 components, and you'll see that the recommendations that we're simply making tonight are to implement pretty much exactly what was requested. You might recall, going back to June of last year, the timing of that. It's my understanding Yanera Serrano, her anniversary, her death is in June. I don't remember the exact date. It may be June 16th. It's right around there. But it was 6 years, so it's coming up on 7 years now as we approach June of this year. And of course, at that time, George Floyd had been killed. That happened in May. And then, of course, Sandra Harmon also in May, right before this came before the city council. So what we're recommending that we proceed with the plan. On that day in June 16th, at that council meeting, the council directed a couple actions that day. And the first was to create a public safety subcommittee. That was done. The current members of that subcommittee is Councilmember Ruddick and Councilmember Jimenez. That group met 3 times last calendar year. Councilmember Jimenez was not a council member yet, so he was not on that subcommittee, but we are planning to have schedule a subcommittee meeting probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So towards the end of May, as our continual efforts to move forward with the direction we received on June 16th last year. The second direction we received was to have a community meeting, which really turned into a series of community meetings that we called focus groups. Matthew Chittister has been leading up that effort. And to date, I think there's been 6, maybe 7 focus group meetings that have been held. And the purpose of those groups was really to meet with specific groups, vulnerable populations, other groups that Matthew and others, we decided were focus groups that we really wanted to reach out to ask this question. And the essential question was, what is your experience with law enforcement? Please tell us about your experience with law enforcement. And so those are occurring. The last one was a mental health focus group, occurred about a week and a half ago. And there's a follow-up to that meeting that's occurring this Friday, May 7th, on mental health specifically to further the conversation. That was a pretty big group. I think there was 29 members there, both experts from the mental health community, as well as advocates, city staff, and a couple members from the public as well. So I wanted to just give that context that all happened on June 16th of last year, and that set us off in motion to create the public safety subcommittee, have the focus groups. We also drafted a white paper, all in the purpose of coming back with recommendations about possibly making changes to how we do policing in Half Moon Bay. And the Yaniro Serrano Presente program is certainly a part of that. We were requested by council, I think at the last meeting, it came up at priority setting workshop, questions about how the work was going on policing. It's constantly been coming up since June of last year, and specifically the Yaniro Serrano. And I think the message was, we know staff is doing this work. We know it takes time, but why wait for Yaniro Serrano? I mean, is there anything, is there anyone that's disagreeing that we shouldn't proceed with that now? We understand it's going to be a part of the recommendations when we come out the other side, but the message seemed to be to staff anyway, the way we interpreted it was, why wait on that? Let's get some quick wins early. And so the mayor specifically asked for it to come back, I think 2 meetings ago, and so here we are tonight. So I'll go through the 4 components of it, and I'll highlight the 3 that we're recommending tonight more specifically. But number 1, as I said, was to create this resource line. It's referred to as a resource line in the program that the Latino Council delivered to us. And it will be just that. We've established a phone number already. This number will reside in the city manager's office. That will go to a voice mailbox, and there'll be a greeting on that line, both in English and Spanish. We're working on the exact words of the greeting, and we want to get the words just right. But it'll be very clear what the purpose of the line is and what the purpose is not. And people then would be able to leave messages on that line, including anonymous messages if they chose to. So someone could leave an anonymous note, we would still listen to it, and we would still follow it up. The idea, of course, was to have a certain level of accountability. I think the idea expressed by the Latino Council and Tony Serrano was that this would be a line that would be in City Hall, would be in the city manager's office. And so it'll be me and my staff that handle that line and then do the follow-up to look into what we hear. The kind of, we might hear compliments, we might hear complaints, we might hear examples that people had experience with law enforcement. Maybe they were pulled over recently. And then we will look that up, and there'll be a kind of an iterative approach to how we do that, depending on if they want to remain anonymous or not, and what we have to do in terms of interacting with Saul and his team to find out, okay, what's behind this and what happened. So that's the first recommendation, and we will be able to implement that very quickly if the council directs us so tonight. We would obviously advertise that line far and wide on our website. You could also submit a complaint by email on the website if you didn't want to call and leave a message. All that's contained in the staff report. And we met with the Latino Council prior to coming to you tonight, and they concurred that this was meeting the approach that they requested. The second recommendation and component of the program is that new deputies that are assigned to the coast, or assigned to Half Moon Bay, I should say, by the sheriff, that there is a community orientation meeting where the community can get to know those deputies. So no agenda at these orientations, but simply a meet and greet where they can meet the community. And I think the idea here was that maybe it would go beyond a one-time meeting. When we met with the Latino Council, they had lots of ideas that are in the spirit of community policing about how there could be opportunities for the community to get to know their deputies better. But certainly the request from the program was, let's start with an orientation. And so we agree. And our initial recommendation is that we meet all of our current deputies. They're not new, but we have 8 plus maybe assigned to Half Moon Bay right now. And so Saul said the best way to do this would be to have a series of 4 meetings so we could meet 2 at a time. So those are being scheduled. We'll try to schedule those in late May or early June. I assume their sergeant might be with the 2 deputies, or Sal might join. We'll figure out the exact format, but we'll advertise those far and wide as well. Those will be Zoom meetings initially, but we do envision, as this program continues, that those meetings would obviously be in person at some point. So that's recommendation number 2, the second part of the Nero Serrano Presente program. The third part dealt with mental health issues. And in the program, there's a whole paragraph devoted to kind of the intersection between mental health challenges and the way individuals might find themselves intersecting with law enforcement. And that was obviously key to the program. I think it was really the key as it was put together. And so our recommendation here is that the council agreed to allocate $75,000 to mental health services, yet to be defined exactly how that would be used and who that would go to. I mean, I could envision where we would put out a kind of a request for proposal or a grant opportunity where nonprofits might submit, and we would make a decision then. We just don't know, but we thought it was very important for the council to show kind of their commitment in this regard, and we thought 75,000 was a good start. When we met with the Latino Council, they were clear, and they reemphasized, which I thought was very upfront of them, that they always recognize this as a bigger effort than just the city. And they recognize that funds would have to be raised from multiple sources, feds, state, grants, private sector possibly. But part of it was certainly asking for the city to do their share. So we called this, we came up with the term seed money when we met with them to make it clear that we understand this is a big, big component of the challenge and a big component of the program as it was submitted to us. So $75,000 clearly doesn't go that far, but this is would be the city's first shot at putting money into that. And we would obviously come back and report how exactly we propose to use it. If there are questions tonight, we'll certainly try to answer them, but we really don't know yet. But we want it to be used effectively, and we want it to hit that specific intersection of mental health and law enforcement. That would be the goal. So those are the 3 recommendations before you tonight. I will touch on the 4th component of the program, and that was that the Sheriff's Department will comply with 8 Can't Wait. Also on June 16th, you might recall, it was that same night, the sheriff made a presentation to the council, and they did make a presentation that night about 8 Can't Wait. And so their presentation is on the city's website. I put the link in the staff report. And for the members of the public that don't know, 8 Can't Wait is a series of practices. It's really a nationwide thing, as far as I know, conversation that exists. I don't know where it started, but it's certainly got momentum and is something that's talked about nationwide. So it's not just here in the Bay Area, this idea. And the 8 Can't Wait is 8 specific policies that folks want different police departments, sheriff departments to adopt that are specific to their use of force policies. And that day on June 16th, the sheriff indicated their policy with regard to 8 Can't Wait, their own, the San Mateo County policy on use of force, and they comply with 100% with 6 of the 8, and the other 2 they comply with to the extent feasible, is how it's worded in their policies. One of those is shooting at a moving vehicle, and one of those is the officer warning someone that they're going to use force or shoot before they do. And they do have, the sheriff does have a caveat on those two, that when feasible, they support that. So that also is included in the discussion. There's no recommendation tonight on that, since the sheriff is complying with those to the best of their ability at this point. But I'll close by just saying the recommendations are establish the resource line as quickly as feasible, and we're pretty much ready to roll that out in the next couple of weeks. Schedule the 4 orientation meetings with the deputies who are assigned. I imagine those would be, maybe 45-minute Zoom meetings, and we'll see how those go, and we'll make sure we get the word out for those. And then the third is the agreement to allocate $75,000 in next fiscal year's budget towards this effort. So with that, that concludes my prepared remarks tonight. Be happy to answer any questions and take public comment on this item. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
Thank you, Bob, for that presentation, and thank you to staff for acting to bring this forth as we requested. Appreciate that. Why don't I open this up to public forum? I see we have a couple of hands up.
Thanks, Mayor. We'll start with Stacy. Stacy, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, City Council. Thank you especially to City Manager, Assistant Manager for your work in this space. I am Stacy McCarthy, a member of Coastside Families Taking Action. We have been very attentive to this topic since we started at the same time that Tony presented this initiative to the City Council. And we want to take this moment to recognize Tony and the loss to the Latino community. We lost Serrano too many years ago, and to recognize that it's time to acknowledge that loss and to move in a direction of solidarity to bring our community together. We're grateful to Belinda, Joaquin, the entire Latino Advisory Council for their stick-to-itiveness, Tony in particular for spearheading this. And we, as a growing organization of over 200 families here on the coast side, are in full agreement with implementation of this. And we want to acknowledge Captain Lopez and his participation in this, and the importance of everyone coming together and acknowledge the opportunity for us to increase awareness of what's happening in our community and how everyone feels at this very tender moment in time. So we want to, again, recognize this council, this city management team, this group of people for moving this initiative forward and acknowledging this great loss with something that will make us a better community together. Thank you. I have a second person in my family that will raise our hand. It will not be me who will speak again. Thank you.
Stacy, appreciate it. Next speaker.
Next, we have Alice. Alice, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you all. Thank you, City, and all the listening that you've done, but I want to give a special thanks to Tony and the entire Serrano family. They've been bright lights in such a very difficult time and have looked for a peaceful, nonviolent solution to a very violent situation. So I want to thank their leadership and their light in this whole process. Thank you all for what you're doing to move things forward. As you know, as part of the Latino Council, I support all these areas. The complaint and compliment line, if you will, is going to be a great move towards transparency. Something that didn't occur to me when we were talking about this was just because transparency is a whole part of this process, I'm just wondering how the city might aggregate statistics or non-confidential issues. I understand there's going to be a process, and I'm just wondering if the city could outline sort of what is that process, have that become like a public information, but also if there's a way to get, reports on how things have moved forward, what the usage is and what kinds of things could happen, just because we want this to be a collaborative process all the way through. Same with the community outreach. I understand by Zoom because of the COVID, if we go into yellow, as soon as we could have community leaders and community members walking with the sheriff deputies, the more that can break down those barriers and we can have real human interactions. I want to just reinforce that. And then I also want to just talk about, that the pilot is going to be good, and it's a first start, like you said, with seed money, but it's a collaborative effort. So it's a long-term commitment. So I would hope that there'd be a group or a way or a mechanism, and I'd like to hear if the city's thought of a way to have a mechanism that it's like hand in hand, city, community, maybe county and law enforcement, all sort of having a collaborative, moving this and growing the program. And then just finally, yes, we'll get back to looking at 8 Can't Wait again, and look forward to being able to respond about that. But thank you so much for all your work to make this go forward.
Thank you, Alice, for both your comments and positive suggestions. Greatly appreciated. Our next speaker.
Pepper Black, you have 3 minutes. You're muted if you're trying to speak.
Sorry about that. I would also like to acknowledge Tony and the Serrano family, and for Tony's courage in the face of his loss of his sister. And I would like to compliment and show gratitude to recognize this city management team for supporting this. And I just wanted to share that I was at UC Berkeley when we had a blueprint of the details of the calls for assistance and support for Yanira Serrano, for a student at UC Berkeley, and officers Brashear and Kenny Lopez there handled it in a nonviolent way, and the person got support and help. And I know that the Serrano family and all of us would like for that to be the outcome for anyone in the future. And so thank you so much for supporting this very, very important move. And that's all.
Thank you, Pepper. Appreciate that. Next speaker, please.
Karina Leibowitz, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, all right. I'm going to echo a theme here for you tonight and start by thanking Tony Serrano and the Latino Advisory Council for their wonderful leadership in this area. And thank you, City Council and City staff for moving this initiative forward. I also wanted to thank you for the acknowledgement that this is just the beginning on some of these topics, and for moving quickly to get these beginning steps in place, so that we can start to move in this direction more rapidly. I particularly want to sort of echo Alice's comments around the importance of the transparency element related to the compliments complaints hotline, taking into account privacy considerations. And I think the importance of having those interactions get off of Zoom as soon as possible, so that it becomes a sort of more integrated, meaningful, sustained interaction to the extent we can get there. But back again to the thanks to you all and to the Latino Advisory Council for their leadership here. I'm really excited that this program is going in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Karina. Next speaker, please.
Tony Serrano, you have 3 minutes.
I think you're on mute, Tony.
Sorry about that.
Oh,
Thank you,
okay.
Jessica. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, city staff, and members of the community. 7 years ago, we lost a beautiful life. If the same resources had been in place at that time, the tragedy will have been prevented. We don't know. But what we know is that this program will prevent future tragedies. May the lives that this program touches be remembered in the name of Yanira. I want to thank all of those who contributed to the implementation of the program in one way or another, to the city of Half Moon Bay for listening to us. It is difficult to please each of the residents, but when we see beyond ourselves and we put ourselves in someone else's shoes, we can learn and we can make better decisions. To the CFTA for walking by our side, to the council members for giving us their blessing on this journey that is just the beginning. Finally, I want to say that for any project to be successful, it takes the work of all of us. I hope that all these pieces are where they need to be, and people take responsibility for their positions. Yanira Serrano, presente. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it. Our next speaker is...
We have Stacy, part 2.
She may have just left her hand up.
She said she was going to raise it again for someone else in her
For someone
family.
else.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I hear you.
To the Yanira Center and the family and community, I offer my deepest sympathy and gratitude for what you're bringing forward, and to Tony for truly stepping up and stepping into this circle to wake us up and to take action. And I appreciate what I would consider a progressive city council for taking the banner for a lot of efforts, but especially for this one in our community and moving it forward. What I'd like to bring up, which is to Bob, our city manager, is that my experience has been that when we have voiced issues with the sheriff's department, Bob, it seems like you have gone and asked for comments from the sheriff's department and gotten explanation. And I just want you to know that my sense is that you don't know what it's like to get pulled over for taking a right by not turning on your blinker, or by stopping over the white line with your vehicle. And that there are police officers who have said that all it takes is less than 4 minutes to find some reason to pull someone over. So if your process is to take the calls and then to get verification that there was a reason, I think we're missing the point. The point is that a lot of us, as an African American in this country, as Latinos in this community, we feel threatened, and that these complaints that are being brought in need to be seen and heard from an objective point of view. Not, we say nothing personal, but it is personal. As a white male, I don't think you can experience that. I say you can't see the ship because you haven't been on it. So it takes a deeper level of listening and understanding that people are coming to you from a space of fear and worry about their family and their life, and you hold this in your hands. So there's a need for you to expand your community so that you can understand what the core of why people would come to you for this. And yeah, there's a lot of reasons why they would pull me over, but they don't pull you over for the same reasons. So it needs to be at a deeper level than just taking the complaint, finding out what the reason is, and letting it go. It's something deeper to the core. It's a systemic issue. It's in our sinews in this country. So I'm pleading with you to find a way to work with people so you can begin to understand really where it's coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is Aisha Barrow.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Sorry, I have a cold, so I'm a little bit congested, but I
wanted to say first off, my thanks and my sorry to Tony Serrano and the family as well. And I am so grateful that the loss of your sister was able to be a catalyst for change, and that you took a leadership role in making sure that you went beyond yourself to make sure that you effected change for the whole community in Half Moon Bay. I also want to thank the City Council for listening to all the voices, for listening to CFTA, for listening to Tony Serrano, and trying to make an impact that way. And finally, I wanted to echo some of the sentiments shared about like having some listening sessions, especially to hear what it's like to be pulled over. It may not be anything that the officer did, but it's an anxiety that's present whenever a person of color especially is being pulled over by the police. So maybe in addition to all the recommendations that were made, I think it's great that there will be some community meetings between the police officers in Half Moon Bay and the community, but also like in addition to that, considering some listening sessions so that the officers can understand kind of the perspective of those folks that are being pulled over and put themselves in their shoes. I mean, they cannot they cannot understand that experience unless they hear it from the community. So consideration for adding that as part of the different recommendations that were made. I myself was pulled over not too long ago for a traffic stop, and not that I had any reason to be fearful because the officer was very respectful, but I was just because of the backdrop of everything that's going on in the nation. And it's just the natural reactions that, you know, like listening to the community and hearing that from us would be helpful. So thank you again for your openness to the ideas, and that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you, Aisha. Appreciate that. Before I open up our council member discussion, City Manager Bob Nisbet, was there anything you wanted to address from the comments?
Mr. Mayor, yes, there was a couple things, maybe 2 or 3 things I think I can try to address. The first from Alice, and then I think Karina might have underscored Alice's point as well on collecting the data, keeping the data, and then trying to draw, you know, some conclusions or from all the information that we receive, whether it's complaints or compliments or so forth or so on. We do intend to do that. I don't know if I can fully answer their question on how we will do that. I mean, I think it's important that we be a little bit iterative here to see what we get and then start to think about how we can put it into categories, like categories, to start to draw ideas about what we're receiving. And it does depend a little bit, you know, or not, to what extent we receive anonymous calls versus non-anonymous. But yes, we're going to keep the messages. We're going to keep files on it, and we'll do our best to try to start to find if there is any correlations or trends as we go. I think Alice also made a comment about the funding, and really, as I took her comment, you know, really leveraging our seed money to look for the opportunities for additional funds, and of course, we will do that. And then the third comment, I'm sorry, I forget the gentleman's name, and I know I've known it before. I believe it's Stacy's husband. He made some very good comments, and I was sitting here listening to him. And so I do, to the best of my ability, hear and understand what he said. And I don't know if we have an answer for that either. I think that also has to be a bit of an iterative process on how we follow these up. We will follow them up in a way that is respectful and does them justice. And part of it will be based on the confidentiality of the person making the call. So again, if it's anonymous, then there's so much we can do. They may choose to leave their name so that we can call them back and get additional information and interview them. And then we might find that they want a confidentiality beyond that initial interview. And so we would then respect that. At some point, and again, it depends on the nature of the call, it might be appropriate for us to then find out additional information about what happened from law enforcement, because they do have body-worn cameras and so forth and so on. So I do understand the comments that were made. I was listening to every word, I promise you. And I want to respect that we're going to try to find a process for follow-up that works. But part of the intention is then if something comes in where some follow-up, real follow-up or action can then be taken, we then want to be in a position to take it. And we would want to then work with Saul to find out, okay, this is what happened. Let's make this adjustment. So I just wanted to make those responses. I don't think it's a satisfactory answer necessarily, but I did want to acknowledge that I really listened intently to what he had to say. And we will think about that as we start to implement the line. And then finally, Council, before I turn it back to you, I just wanted to acknowledge Sal is here. He has been working with us on this as we got to this point. He's also working with the deputies to schedule the Zoom meetings. And so I just wanted to acknowledge him and give him a chance to make any comments before we turn it back to you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, and good evening, Mayor and Council and community members. On a personal note, I'm looking forward to establishing stronger relationships with the entire community. I've had many meetings with CFTA, and they've expressed their concerns, and I've shared with them our policies and what I expect out of our deputies and accountability and transparency. And what I've enjoyed for many months in the conversations is the open dialogue and the acceptance of our perspective and also receiving their perspective. And I think that's probably the most important thing of success is actually listening to each other and communicating. So these listening sessions and community sessions are going to be, I think, in a positive direction for us as a sheriff's office and also for the community. So again, thank you all for the input. I'm here to listen as always. I do take accountability of our deputies extremely important to myself and also the sheriff, but also the transparency is paramount with myself. So with that, thank you again, and looking forward to the future meetings that we're going to have.
Thank you, Saul. And Saul, I appreciate the suggestions you've made. And I know that proactively you've in fact suggested certain meetings that we might be able to do in person when it's safe in certain neighborhoods where council members represent. And, we're not quite there yet to get past the Zoom meetings, but when we do, I appreciate the fact that you actually initiated that conversation. So thank you. I'll now open it up for council discussion and then for a motion. Anyone raising a hand here? Joaquin first, then Harvey. Thank you.
Where should I start?
At the beginning.
That was the beginning was June 3rd, 2014. That's where everything started. Many things happened since then. We got to this point, to a point where we, the city of Half Moon, are working on an initiative to save lives. I want to thank Bob for a great report. Matthew, thank you. Really good presentation. People on the public forum, their comments, really appreciate it. Very strong comments. June 3rd, it was when I decided that one day I was going to run for city council. It was very difficult. It is difficult for families. For Tony, or his family. But we are making changes. Something was born out of that. Now, the alliance with the CFTA, with our community, other community organizations, or community members, coming forward. That's what it takes to work together, to collaborate. What we're proposing, from the city to our community, the safety of our community by transparency of what's going on in our community. There were some great comments. Right? We're going to give our community the ability to feel safe, to complain. This hotline, this line is going to be available. But also, we'd like to acknowledge, our deputies working in our community for the great things they do. So working with our deputies, something that I'm looking forward to. I will be the first one to sign up to do a ride along, to take a walk downtown, introduce them to community members, different areas in our communities, South Main, Alita Park, Pilarcitos Creek, as you know, era Tijuanita, Terrace, anywhere you would like to go. We want to make sure that our deputies feel at home, they are welcome in our community, and we want to give them the opportunity for them to get to know our community. As you know, 2020 was a really tough year for a lot of us. We see mental illness cases going up. If you visit the website, the NAMI website, National Alliance on Mental Illness, you will see how the mental illness cases have gone up. So a program like this, Half Moon Bay is taking the initiative, a little community on the coast side is taking the initiative to implement a program to provide a service for our community. I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you for everybody who has supported this program. As you know, I strongly support this program. Mayor Brownstone, I thank you for requesting to put this item on the agenda. Every city council member, city staff, as we have said in the past, before I became a city council member, I've said it, Belinda, Tony, Alice, Kike, we said it from Latino Advisory Council, that it's an honor to have a city staff like you, a city council like you, that now I'm very honored to be part of. So thank you.
Thank you, Joaquin. I appreciate that. Any other discussion? Oh, sorry, that's right. Harvey. Appreciate it. Thanks, Harvey.
I want to echo what Joaquin said about his gratitude toward staff, toward Bob and Matthew for implementing this program. I think it's wonderful. I'm looking forward to the issue of how we can actually do the mental health part of the program. I think it's up in the air and it's not clear what needs to be done, but I would certainly hope that the city follows up and we do whatever we can that would actually help with the issue of mentally ill people interacting with law enforcement. I'd also like to echo Joaquin's desire. I'd love to have a ride along with a deputy who's either new or has been on the coast side. I think when you meet people face to face, you develop a relationship, and I think that's important. Having said all that, in appreciation for what has been done about the Llanera Serrano Presente program. I would like to take issue with what Tony said, that his sister, and certainly uh, Sandra Harmon, would still be alive today if this program were implemented. I don't see that. I think we need other measures to protect the public from what had happened to Yanira and Sandra Harmon. I think what's happened recently in Alameda and Daly City are examples of things that the public is becoming increasingly aware of the danger to community members. And so later, when we will be agendizing, I will try to bring up something that I hope will be the beginning of a way that we can protect the public more. But I don't want to take away from the fact that this is a wonderful start, and this program is really the beginning of how we can make sure that law enforcement and our public feel more comfortable with each other. So thank you for doing it, and I look forward to any future changes. So thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Any other council member? Penrose, if you could unmute. There you go. Great.
Yeah, I would also like to echo what council members Jimenez and Rohrbach have said. Thanks, staff, especially Matt, who's done such a good job with organizing the focus groups that we've been meeting with over this past year. The idea of safety in a community is paramount. And if part of that safety occurs because of transparency, then the transparency will grow as the safety grows. So this is a program that is going to be evolving over time. It will not be perfect until we've gotten to the point where there is complete transparency, where there is ongoing conversation, and where people know that they are safe. I was especially moved by Stacy's husband speaking as a person of color, and his experiences and how very different his experience is. As Aisha also said, the fear that they bring to any encounter with law enforcement, even if it's ill-founded, is present. It's real. It's something they live with 24/7, 365 days a year. And it's not an experience that a lot of us as white folks have had. So I don't think this is going to be an easy problem to solve. I think this first step is wonderful, and I am here to fully support it. I also think that Sal's response to our requests for communication have been stellar. And I count on that ongoing conversation to be as open and transparent and ultimately fruitful as I think it can be. If we all put our minds to it and take this as seriously as the issue warrants. So thank you, everyone, and here's hoping we can get it right.
Thank you. Any more input from council members? Okay.
I really can't add a whole lot. I mean, people have spoken before me, have touched on, all of the highlights. It's a it's a very moving moment for me to have gotten to this point. I fully support the program. I do agree with Councilmember Penrose that, you know, these are not easy fixes, but what they will require to have sustained progress is to remain open and listening to each other and sharing our experiences. It's going to be keeping the conversation going. And I think addressing the mental health issues is really important, but I think we have to also recognize why we are where we are today. And it's because there's a lot of dysfunction in our society. You know, parents are struggling to take care of their children. Schools are struggling to educate. You know, our institutions aren't doing the jobs they were designed to do. They're overloaded with you know, mission creep and programs that they weren't designed to handle. We need to work to support each other and try to solve those root problems that brought us to where we are today. And that's addressing inequality, helping people, you know, be able to live, have a living wage, and be able to find shelter and feed themselves nutritious food and their children. We have to focus on the root causes, not just address, you know, the symptoms of the problem. You know, we could spend gazillions of dollars doing that, but we have to, you know, look inside of ourselves and in our communities and address those underlying causes for our problems. And that means for the city, you know, supporting activities for everyone, making sure we're addressing the needs of the broader community, not just individual groups, but, you know, doing the work that we were, you know, designed to do and doing it well, and working with others to help them do well by their own institutions. So, you know, it's a big lift, but this is a good start. I fully support it, and it's going to be exciting to see how things develop. And I congratulate everyone who played a part in this. I'm not going to go through the names again. You know who they are. Thank you. Thank you to Saul. I do want to say that Matthew and City Manager Bob and Saul have spent a lot of time listening. And I know because I hear about the conversations in my one-on-ones with them. I know that they're working hard to address these issues personally. I see it. I know it. We are a very fortunate community to have these individuals, you know, leading this effort and leading our city government. Believe me, they care. There's no question about that. So don't ever, you know, question that. Don't question that commitment. You may question the timeline of solving things, but don't question the commitment to help us move forward. You know, it's there. And so that's all I want to say. It's a big lift. I know we're all in this together and we're all committed. So let's take it on.
Thank you, Councilmember Ruddock. Well, thanks for everyone for this conversation dialogue about a very important issue. One comment I'll make regarding the mental health piece, Councilmember Rarback and others have alluded to, yeah, you know, it's a very big issue. What is it going to look like? We don't know. What resources do we draw from? Where do we start? What do we envision that we would like it to look like? We know some pieces. Matthew put together a panel a week ago, and there'll be a follow-up panel at the end of this week on mental health. And it was actually a very remarkable panel, and Matthew actually followed up with some summary notes that he's given to us. It was a remarkable panel in terms of the number of resources and folks at the county level in other cities in the Bay Area that he put together. So I remain optimistic that we actually have this brain trust out there, that at the very least, Matthew knows what he's introducing to us as a community, people we can draw on with, hey, you know what worked, what didn't, What would you do differently if you were able to start up something again? You know, how's it looking now after a few months? So I think there's a lot of resources we can learn from. And certainly at the county level, they're increasing their resources. So I know PERT has, you know, that was one of the people speaking, and they're beginning to add more resources. So, so it'll be interesting to see where those partnerships can lead us to. And the best any of us can do, listening to someone who is on many different levels of in their lives of receiving ends of on the receiving end of being treated unfairly in many walks of life, you know, the best I can say is to try and lead with listening and with empathy, because we've all been in situations in our lives where we've been treated unfairly by somebody or by organizations or in school, at work, etc. But the kinds of things that I heard spoken about today, you know, maybe as a young person, I experienced that more. Times where I was mistaken for someone who wasn't white, depending on who I was hanging out with, maybe how much suntan I had, all that. You know, I looked different back then. And, but the privilege I have is I get to keep those experiences at arm's length day to day. And that's a huge privilege that I'm aware of. And I'm quite aware that others, so I might remember what it felt like, but there's others who have to deal with that every day. And if not themselves, their children, their family members, friends, families. So yeah, it's a deeper kind of listening. And I think as a community, we're capable of that out here in Half Moon Bay. So I stay optimistic. So thanks, everyone. Would anyone like to make a motion? If not, I'm happy to. Okay.
I'll move approval of the Yanera Presente program.
Thank you.
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
I wanted to confirm.
Sorry.
City Manager Nisbet, did that cover the entire staff recommendation? I believe there were 3 portions of it.
Yeah, if they adopt the resolution, all 3 parts are there.
Okay, perfect. Councilmember Arbeck?
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone from the public for contributing your comments during the public forum. Greatly appreciated. We will now take a 8-minute break to 9:40, please. And we'll thank you for members of the public. We will reconvene at 9:40. Thank you. We're ready to resume, everybody.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and council members, the item before you now is formal establishment of the Redistricting Advisory Committee. And to provide some background and context for those in attendance, the city is required to look at and redraw its district map following each census. And so that will be coming up later this year. And so at the April 6th meeting, the city council considered different options for the redistricting process, at which time staff was directed to move forward with a advisory committee. And so that is the item before you tonight. There is a resolution that formally establishes the committee as well as approves its bylaws. And the staff is recommending a committee of 7 members. The members would be required to be residents of Half Moon Bay that are over 18. And as mentioned at April 6th, anyone who is related to, works for, or paid campaign staff of a council member or a council member themselves is not able to serve on the committee. Our application period will open this Thursday, the 6th, and that will run through May 31st. There will be a banner on our homepage that will link everyone to our redistricting page that will have the application. If for some reason anyone does not have computer access, feel free to give us a call and we can help you with a paper form. We do plan to bring back formal appointment of the members at the June 15th council meeting, at which time we'll also have a calendar of meetings and workshops. And along with the advisory committee, we'll be doing robust public outreach, have a variety of workshops. And as we did in 2018, we'll have a map drawing tool for members of the public to submit draft maps to the committee. And then so the committee will hold all of the required public hearings and public meetings. And once they have come up with their required number of maps based on what the council directs tonight, those maps would then come to the city council for formal adoption. And so there are a number of directives that staff does need guidance from with the council. And the first is, what is the committee's charge? And so that would be whatever you want the committee to provide to you, the number of maps, the type of maps, and then also any additional requirements for the applicants outside of what was already stated that the city council would like to establish, whether the council wants to pledge that it would adopt the committee's maps without changes. And that goes along with sort of wanting an independent commission, but given the size and the requirements and that not necessarily being that feasible for a city like Half Moon Bay, that would be an additional step for that. And then also the process that should be used for selection. And there's a number of options. We could do a random draw. The council could conduct interviews of each applicants and then select the 7 appointees. We could submit the applications with any identifying features such as name taken off, and the council could rank them at that meeting. And then I would tally the rankings and announce the top 7 along with names, and then those would formally be appointed. So we are looking for direction on those 4 questions and anything else that the council may deem necessary. And then the recommendation would be to adopt the resolution, approve the process and the directives as outlined, and then we will open up the application period and advertise as necessary. So that concludes my staff report on this, and not sure if there are any public comments, but
No, that's great. Can you keep the deck up there?
yes.
'Cause I think it might help facilitate.
Yeah.
So, and maybe we'll go back to that first page. And then before we begin, let's open up public forum on this, if there's any particular comments.
So I do need to close this for that portion
Oh,
because
okay,
when I
great.
share, I lose
Sorry.
sight of all
Okay.
of you. I don't have any hands raised yet. Is there anyone in the public who would like to comment on this item? I'm not showing any hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the public forum.
Oh, I do have one. Hold on. Stacy, you have 3 minutes.
This is RJ Jennings again.
Oh, hi.
This is a quick question. My understanding, before there was this districting, there were no districts. Is there a requirement that we need to redistrict, or do we eliminate districting altogether?
That's a great question, RJ.
So in 2018, the city's at-large election system was challenged and we had threat of litigation. So the city council did decide to transition to district elections in 2018. And then what that meant though was just a short 2-3 years later, we would have to go through the post-census redistricting process. After these maps are adopted, we won't need to look at our maps again until following the 2030 census.
Thank you, Jessica, for that background, and I hope that answers your question, RJ. It's yeah, it's not exactly ideal for a town this small, but we didn't have much choice.
If I could butt in, I don't think anybody on the council was really happy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think that's exactly what
We were forced into it because all the other jurisdictions that had tried to challenge the lawsuit from this Southern California lawyer, all of them had lost, and in some cases close to $1 million. That is essentially why we were forced into this redistricting, and nobody was happy about it. And at least I personally am still not happy about it.
Thank you, Harvey. Appreciate that background. Probably the only group really happy was the law firm that collected all their legal fees from those other cities. So anyway, okay. So if we can go back to the deck again, just because I think it'll kind of help our discussion and also for anyone from the public watching. Okay, so why don't we start with number 1? Anyone? Yeah, Deborah.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment, and that is that I don't know, but I believe the rest of the council is in agreement on this, but I'm not certain, so I'd like to hear. I would like to see a map that includes 4 districts with an at-large elected mayor. I am not interested in looking at anything that does not include an at-large elected mayor as part of the model. My reason for that is when you break up a small town like Calhoun Bay into 4 districts, the danger is that they will be competing one with the other, and we need someone on council who is going to be able to look at the interests of all 4 separate districts and work the city in a unified manner.
Thank you for that comment. Are you done? I'm sorry, are you done?
Yes, for
Yes.
that.
For that, okay. Let's see. I'd like to see both maps, but I'll reserve my comments after others have spoken. Councilmember Reddick.
Yeah, I would like to see both maps, actually. I'm not entirely persuaded of the advantages of having a mayor who's elected for 4 years. That seems like a long time to me. And I think we need to have the elected mayor discussion separately to this. But in the meantime, I think the charge should be to look at both scenarios. You know, a 5 district and a 4 with elected mayor. So I'd like to see both while we, you know, resolve our ultimate direction. Are you taking these one at a time, Robert?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. That's what I thought makes sense. Great, Councilmember Urbeck.
I agree with Council Member Penrose. It's we should have an elected mayor. Make a long story short.
Okay. Councilmember Jimenez.
Well, I think our last meeting, or one of the meetings we had, I shared with you my feeling about the district. In our community, we do have a small community, and I think I would like to see both maps, just to learn the difference about how to work with our community, how to better serve our community on our upcoming elections. So I'm interested in looking at two maps.
Thank you, Councilmember Jimenez. Yeah, I'd like to see two maps, and I would also like to have this, see a community discussion on this around the pros and cons of each choice of an at-large mayor versus 5 districts. I spoke to, I was curious, what some of our other neighboring cities have done. And I was aware that in Menlo Park, they had this same conversation a while back about having an at-large mayor and 4 districts versus 5 districts. And they had quite a robust conversation around it. And I guess Menlo Park, I think, is around 30,000 folks. And they felt that, and by keeping 5 districts, they kept their rotation program, which they liked. So they felt that an at-large mayor for 4 years would actually get in the way of consensus building. You mentioned districts competing, I think. They had quite the different opinion. They felt that what would happen is council members would try to vie for the favor of the mayor, and that it would break down the consensus and incentive to build consensus that they felt that they enjoyed. And they were concerned that if it was a mayor who only represented certain perspectives, that the community would have to live with that for 4 years. Based on current events in this country on a national level, I could say that's kind of a visceral concern to some, having someone, and sometimes you can have a very charismatic person run for mayor, but who doesn't necessarily represent all the views or gets, they also felt that it opened up a lot of opportunity for special interests to influence that person over 4 years. So listening to some of those concerns, I feel, I'd like to see the 2 maps and continue this dialogue and open it up more to the community and see how the community feels about the differences. And I certainly understand the point about the idea of having one person who represents, the entire city, but I don't necessarily feel in this small town people would only represent their districts no matter what. So again, that's how I feel, but that's why we have this dialogue. So
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
could you maybe find that Menlo Park meeting link where they discussed that and send it to the council? Is that possible?
That is a great idea. So I will take that as an action item this week.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I was not implying or that an elected mayor would have to run for a total of 4 years. That's another discussion. It could be that we
You're
have
right. You're right. Yep.
a mayor
Yes.
that runs for 2 years.
Yep. That's another option. You're right. You're right.
Can Jessica weigh in on that if that's a possibility?
It is.
It is.
Yeah, that would be something the council could do. And if it's helpful to address Councilmember Rohraback and Penrose's comments, we could have asked the committee to do the 2 maps. And then what I could do is also schedule one of the workshops specifically around the elected mayor model and take public input and the committee's input and have part of their package that they then present to you at the end include an analysis of an elected mayor model versus not, and the public input involved in that. And then that discussion could be part of which map the council decided to adopt,
Yeah,
if that's helpful.
yeah.
Could
No,
you explain how a 2-year mayor would work?
So it would be part of each election. And so each election, there would be 3 candidates on the whole ballot, but depending on which district people lived in, they would either only be voting for a 2-year mayor plus their district council member, or just the 2-year mayor. But basically it would mean that each election cycle, there would be whichever 2 districts were up in addition to the 2-year mayor.
Harvey, I don't fully get it either, but you know, when the time comes, let's look at I want to see some pictures of what that looks like, saying, you know, a model of that, how that works year to year. Cause yeah, it is a little bit
And what's
more
legal?
confusing. And
It'd be part of the election sequencing. And so say in, you know, it wouldn't be 22, it would be, well, it would be in 22. Say you had districts 1 and 3 plus the 2-year elected mayor. And then in 24, you'd have districts 2 and 4 plus a 2-year elected mayor. So every election cycle would be the balance of the 4-year district terms with a 2-year elected mayor. I believe San Bruno has a 2-year elected mayor. I'd have to double check.
And I was also curious, you know, now that we're talking, if there's a 2-year or 4-year, let's say, that person appoints a vice mayor when there's an at-large mayor, do they have a vice mayor?
I would assume that the vice mayor would rotate the same way that we currently rotate the mayor position. And so it would go along with the most recent election, you know, like the in 24, those 2 district seats would serve as vice mayor in 26 and 27.
Yeah, okay.
Feels so weird to say 27.
2-year elected mayor, at the end of the 2 years, if he was not, or she was not reelected, then he or she would have only served for 2 years. Is that correct?
Correct. So
That
anyone could run for the mayor position when the nomination period opened, the same as the 4-year district seats. Anyone could run for those 4-year district seats when that nomination period is open. If whoever was elected as the 2-year mayor continued to be reelected, they would continue serving. But if someone ran against them and was elected in place, then they would then become the 2-year mayor.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Joaquin, was your hand up from before, or are you asking another question? Sorry.
But it was from before. Let me.
Oh, okay, you just left it up by accident. Okay, great, because I wasn't focusing in enough on that. Appreciate that. Okay, so so for now, I don't know, do we have to vote on this, or do we feel comfortable with going with the 2 maps and continuing the conversation? And I liked Jessica's idea for a possible workshop, because I really would like to have as much community input as possible on this. I mean, there'll be an advisory committee, I get that, but I think there'll be a lot of interesting, I just think there's folks out there who are a lot smarter than I am, you know, going to have ideas and input about, you know, other experiences and what it looks like. And I would just like to provide that opportunity to hear all that input from the rest of the community.
I'm happy to go along with 2 maps and the workshops with community input.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Penrose. Live with that, Harvey. Come on, we'll figure out what the hell that 2-year mayor thing looks like.
I'm not going to be the one that stops it, so yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks. I think it'll be a very, and I will get a hold of that. That's a great suggestion, Councilmember Reddick, about getting the copy of the council member meeting from Menlo Park. So I will do that. Okay. In terms of additional requirements, on number 2 for applicants. There was one thing that this came up at our last the meeting where we first started talking about having a fully independent committee versus an advisory committee, and this is a hybrid that we're working with. And I think the more that we don't have our fingerprints on this process, I just generally personally feel better. And so, yeah, let's talk about some additional requirements. Councilmember Reddick.
So a couple of things. First, and the most important, I think applicants need to be prepared to file a Form 700 Statement of Economic Interests, so that, it's very transparent to the council and the public about, who this person is who would be serving on this committee that's supposed to be, as objective as possible, when looking at the data. And I think the requirement needs to be noticed in the application form so that people will know that, within 30 days of being appointed, they have to submit a statement of economic interest in order to avoid conflicts. I think that's really important. And we might have to amend the city's conflict of interest code in parallel with that. But, people were very concerned that city council members might draw their own districts. I'm, equally concerned that, people might want to draw districts who have economic interests that would benefit depending on the outcome. So that's really important to me, that particular one.
And by the way, before we move on, Councilmember, just on that point about the Form 700, because I just want to double check this. Jessica, it's my understanding that in the situations where a city goes for the fully independent committee, that is required by law. Is that right? Or Catherine?
Yeah, it would be required of the formal independent commission, and we certainly could add it to, the council is able to add whatever requirements they want for the advisory committee. And I could bring back our conflict of interest code to amend it in an upcoming meeting.
Yeah, so I was just saying there is strong precedent for that. In fact, it doesn't exist for that model. So yeah, continue, Councilmember Reddick, with the other.
And I think that we should bar people from running for council for 4 years. A full election cycle. Just so, to, put them at arm's length from a self-serving campaign in the near term.
How about serving? Would you also include a bar on serving on any commissions because they would want to get appointed to, another interest of getting appointed or anything like that? Or
yeah, I think that would be important, right? They want to remain, at arm's length from political activity.
Right. Okay.
Could I suggest it would be running for city council or serving on the planning commission, as those are the only 2 decision-making bodies?
Sure.
But perhaps not to dissuade someone who may have interest in, BPAC or rec commission or anything like that.
Absolutely. That's fine.
That sounds good. Any other thoughts? So first, what do people think about those additional requirements, 700, Form 700, and not being able to run for city council or serving on the planning commission? Any other input?
Yes to both.
Okay.
Yes to both, yes.
Any thoughts one way or the other, Councilmember Arbach?
I made it clear that I'm not, I don't think this whole process makes a hell of a lot of sense to spend the effort. So,
well, here we are.
I'm going to be neutral about
neutral. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'll say yes to both on those too. So consider that as another additional direction regarding applicants, please.
Okay.
Okay, number 3. Would the council like to pledge that it will adopt one of the committee's recommended maps without any changes? What's everybody's
No.
thoughts on that?
I would say no.
Anything in addition to just no? Or
I think who knows what could happen. There could be some errors that turn up, at the last minute in terms of numbers. It could be found out that somebody didn't appropriately fill out their Form 700, and it turns out that they're, a majority owner of a business in town, or, there could be any eventuality. So I want to, commit to the process, but I don't want to foreclose being able to
right.
change horses if something turns up, in this sort of a process, a politically charged process, as much as we're going to put it at arm's length,
Yep.
there's nothing more political than drawing district boundaries, right?
Right.
Gerrymandering and all that stuff. So I think we just want to be able to avoid any, mistakes or new information that might turn up that could be hurtful. So.
And it's right. A lot of things. A lot of cities will be going through this process. There may be lawsuits in some cities about doing certain things a certain ways. So, I think we could move, in good faith. We will certainly do, respect the process. I trust everyone here, but we don't know everything that might come up that we just don't know about now. So I hear that. What else do other folks think about that? If anything.
I would like to take a look at those maps, and maybe make some changes. Who knows?
All right.
I would agree.
Okay. Neutral council member Rarback, or got an opinion on
it? I'll go along with the majority here and say that we should reserve the right to make any changes.
Okay. All right. And again, yeah, I'm fine with that. So I'm not going to guess at what things could come up later. So, oh, great. Number 4. Why don't we just all take a look at this just to refresh our memories? Again, I'm interested in a process that's as neutral and having as few of our fingerprints on it, but let's see what other folks have to say.
Well, B keeps our fingerprints completely off it.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
I'm in favor of A. I don't want a random drawing. I think as long as names and identifying information has been redacted and we don't know who it is we're talking about, looking at them on the basis of their number of years they've lived in Half Moon Bay, their interests in Half Moon Bay, their employment, those kinds of things, their experience with drawing redistricting maps, for instance. There are a lot of things that we could be looking at that would make me want to choose one person over another. So I would like to be able to vote on and rank the top 7, if 7 is the number we decide on.
I support Dr. P.
So let's see. They're attacked in. Got it. Councilmember Jimenez, got any thoughts on
that? Let's see. For to have a somebody draw this redistricting maps, has to be someone that is from our community, that has experience in our community, that cares about everybody in our community. So I think going with A, work for me. Right now, as the new eras of elections, learning what politics is about. For me, you know, I really I'm really interested in people that care about our community.
Yep. Good. Yeah, I could definitely work with A. I think if names are redacted, these aren't going to have resumes attached. It'll be a questionnaire that I think might be similar to Board of Supervisors. We have a number of sources of questionnaires. And I frankly don't think I'd be able to identify too many folks, from their answering those questionnaires as opposed to a resume and exactly where they live, names, all that identifying information will be redacted. So I'm fairly comfortable with that. So does that feel okay with everyone to go with A?
And just to
Yeah.
clarify that what's in the packet will have the names redacted. We're finalizing the application now, but most of the questions are more general in nature, so as not to, that they wouldn't necessarily give away who the people are. But also to clarify for the public that although the applications in the packet will have the names redacted, the full applications are of course public record and can be requested. And then, of course, after the top 7 are tallied, I would then announce those names at the meeting so that the council could make a formal motion to appoint those people.
Got it. Does that information change anyone's mind? You're still okay with A? Just want to double check. Okay. All right.
I would just make one
Yes.
request that in the application where you mentioned a Form 700 would be required, I would actually link to the document. So if somebody is not familiar with it, they could take a look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The document being the questionnaire or the 700?
The Form 700.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, great.
Just hyperlink Form 700. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Which does become a public record, so people want to know that. Yep. Okay. Wow, did we just get through all that?
I think so.
Yes, we did. Okay.
So whoever makes the motion, then the motion would be to adopt the resolution as amended.
Right.
I move that we adopt the resolution establishing the redistricting advisory committee and its bylaws as amended.
Second, anyone?
Second.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may just summarize what I heard just to reflect that we got all the amendments that you just discussed. So here's what I got in my notes. The direction would be that the advisory committee consider both a 4-district at-large mayor and 5-district model and include an analysis of the pros and cons. They would bring back 2 maps, is what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
The applicants would be required to fill out a Form 700 and would be made aware of that when they apply for the position. Anyone that serves on this commission would be barred from serving for 4 years on the city council and the planning commission. The council, it would be clear there are bylaws that go along with this committee, so those bylaws would be amended to reflect the council's ability to make the final decision once those 2 maps are brought to the council. And it sounded like everyone was in agreement with 7 members being the right number for the committee. Did I catch everything?
I believe you did.
And the process would be alternate A, redact the names, have each member check their 7. Jessica will do a tally and come back to you with the top 7 based on the consensus of 5 of you voting independently.
Great. Thank you, Bob, for that recap. Thank you, Jessica. Should we?
Roll call?
We'll need a roll call, yeah.
Councilmember Penrose,
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach,
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick,
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone.
Yes,
Motion carries unanimously.
great, thank you. We will now move on to our third agendized item, which is the Half Moon Bay Coastside Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau Annual Update and Funding Request for fiscal year 2021 through 22. Do we have a staff report on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jessica, if you could promote Crystalline to panelist. We'll actually be getting a presentation from Crystalline Geet, the Chamber Executive.
Great.
I'll just do a quick introduction. You all know Crystalline. We worked with her for several years now since she joined the Chamber. She is an incredible partner to the city and to the community and all the businesses that she serves, including nonprofits. We work with her as staff on a very regular basis. And she is an incredible advocate for the businesses that she serves. And I think we're really lucky to have her in the community and lucky to have her involved with us on a variety of different levels. As you know, she is one of the Executive Oversight Committee members for the community or the Coastside Recovery Initiative, and continues to provide an abundance of her time and energy in helping the city move forward its efforts to support businesses. So with that, I will turn the time over to Crystalline, who will make a presentation, and then either of us can answer any of your questions at the end.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, staff, council, everybody. Buckle in for the 2-hour presentation I have presented for you tonight. Just kidding. No, I wouldn't do that.
No.
I adore you guys too much. So a little bit of background on the chamber. So since my arrival in late 2018, our chamber has been undergoing a bit of a metamorphosis, and we've really been converting ourselves to what is called a 3C chamber. And that is a chamber whose mission aligns with being a catalyst, a convener, and a champion for our business community and then the community at large. So a much more holistic approach to chambering than is been done in the past. Chambers have been around for 100 years. Ours, I think we're coming up on 60 years or something. And so we're really working towards making sure that our services and offerings align with what our community needs to move forward. So 2020, the year of craziness, we still had some really great accomplishments that I am so insanely proud of. So we polled our members about 2 to 3 months ago and asked our members how much COVID relief funding, so that's grants, loans, I mean, the gamut, how much did they actually attribute to information that they received from the chamber, that without the chamber's help, would they have not known about those opportunities, let alone got them? And we, at the time, had essentially $1.7 million attributed to our efforts, which is really exciting. And I've actually heard a couple more stories, so that has ticked up slightly. We started multiple social media campaigns that we are still maintaining now. In the thick of the pandemic, we did not actually differentiate between member businesses and non-member businesses. We just did our best to promote everybody all of the time, really just wanting to be a champion for those businesses, and not really holding up any barriers that we could take down. And then our website had quite a bit of great traffic just to the business section. So our website is merged with the visit website, but they're 2 separate sections. And our section alone just really had a great bump in providing information both about our businesses as well as things related to COVID and then the fire itself. We often converted our homepage into instantaneous resources for fire victims and COVID-related information. So the 2020 effects on the chamber were pretty much on par with every other business that wasn't Google or Apple. So our revenue was decreased by roughly 51%. A lot of our revenue relies heavily on members paying their annual dues, as well as event admissions and sales. And without having to have the events, that obviously was a big thing. Pumpkin Fest was a huge one for us. And then we did not force members to pay their dues. And we also didn't drop any members. So again, we really just wanted to have that, be that umbrella to help people promote their businesses, let people know that they were still in business and really needing that customer support. So we did have a significant loss in membership dues, and we still continue to have a less membership dues than before, but we're really confident that by the end of this year people will be able to get back into the normal groove of things. Because the chamber is a 501c6, we were not actually eligible for any of the major grants. So we weren't allowed to get PPP. We weren't allowed to get any of the California grants, national grants. Those were, geared more towards 501(c)(3)s. Social services, of course, were so important. And unfortunately, chambers kind of got lumped into this category lumped into a category with 501c4s, which tend to do more lobbying. And obviously the government didn't want their funds to go towards lobbying. And it was just an unfortunate circumstance that we got stuck in that. With all of the decreases, we clearly had to decrease our staff. So we went from roughly 4 to 5 full-time staff, 7 staff being in our heyday, down to, by the end of 2020, it was me by myself. I had many dance parties in the office alone. And but however, even though all of the money and all of the resources were kind of dwindling away, the request for our help and support went through the roof. And even with all of that, I am actually quite proud about being able to try new things and really create as much as I could out of thin air, and really going through a lot of the COVID resources and being able to help businesses the best we could with what we had. And our impact actually increased over years past. So looking ahead, 2020, the year of yay, there's so many things on the horizon for us. So I personally really look at our other area nonprofits to really get energized in how the chamber can continue to evolve to be a nonprofit business that really supports our community in the best possible ways while filling niches that are not necessarily fully taken care of. So I look at the Coastside Hopes and the Puentes and the Alas and Abundant Grace, and really look at what they're doing and their passions. And we're not trying to recreate any wheels, so we make partnerships where we can, but there are some holes that we can fill. So we want to really ramp up our education, which we've talked about in the past, and 2020 obviously put a damper on that, but we are moving forward. We are actually in the process of putting together a classroom in turning one of the rooms in our office into a classroom, and really being able to offer different things to help both business owners and managers learn how to do better business, as well as adding components for workforce. So helping the adult school and helping the other different nonprofits in their efforts, and then creating classes, again, to fill those gaps, to help our workforce get up to date with what business owners are needing. Also going to be working with the high school on that as well. So what we are asking for is $25,000 to help with the expansion of the business services center. So you so graciously in 2019 gave us 15,000 for the actual physical expansion of the business center and making it a place that we could actually serve the business community. And so as that is coming to a conclusion, there are some other things that we could use support on in being able to provide consulting tools, getting access to more experts to bring to the coast side. And also actually so timely, Councilwoman Penrose, I believe, made mention earlier tonight about wanting in the Samtrans about wanting that data about where our workforce is coming and going from. And that is actually literally on our horizon. And that was going to be our money ask for 2020. Now, obviously, it didn't make sense to do a transportation study in 2020 on that. So we had to put that on the back burner, but I have been in discussions with SAMCETA and other county partner agencies on how we can start putting that together. So that will be something on the horizon. And then we are also asking for an additional $10,000 for the help with the economic development task force primarily. I really am putting all I possibly can into it. I think it's the most amazing program. I'm so excited. I got the sticker today. It's already on display. And it is in itself almost a solid part-time job just in dealing with the communications and the meetings and all of that. And there's already actually well into 100 hours of my time into it, which I love. And it would just be really amazing if the city could just help the chamber in especially this time for us so that we can do our best to support the economic recovery initiative and the task force members. And with that, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Crystalline. And I'll just share before we take questions. City staff supports this request. We believe that an investment in the chamber is an investment in our businesses, which is really important for the community as a whole, but also in a normal year, transient occupancy taxes and sales taxes are an important component of our city revenues. And so this is really an investment in our own revenues that allow us to support the community at large and offer the great programs that we offer. And so if this is approved, we will include this in the budget and negotiate a contract for these services, including performance measures and other requirements that we typically include in our contracts or services.
Councilmember Penrose has a question.
Yeah, I wanted to just take a moment to give a shout out to Crystalline. She has not only been supportive of businesses that were chamber members, businesses that were not chamber members, but she is an integrated part of our community. She works with every single function that the city performs. She works with the emergency crew. She works with city staff. She's working with the recovery initiative. As she said, it's just amazing what she's done. And I don't think we can afford to let go in any way of that kind of energy. I don't know where she gets it, but God bless her. And thank God that she's there working for us. The business of Half Moon Bay, the financial business of Half Moon Bay is dependent on the chamber and on Crystalline in particular. So I am very grateful that you're with us, and I am totally in support of supporting you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is there any public comment?
We have Councilmember Jimenez with us.
Oh, sorry, Joaquin, Mr. There again. I'm getting punchy here after this time.
I just want to give acknowledgement, recognition to Kreslin, for her energy again, her awesomeness, on what she does, here in our community. Um, I'm really looking forward to, working with her. We already met last week. We brought up a few ideas. I mentioned to her, a few of the members of our community about some of the things that we are doing in our community. Uh, so I'm really, I really enjoy listening to her presentations. Like all that energy. Uh, it's something that we need in our community, and especially when it comes, when we talk about recovery, our economic recovery. Uh, the city of Afumay was really greatly affected, by COVID-19. And I think, it will take us this type of energy to move forward. Um, in collaboration of our businesses, the Chamber of Commerce, Kreslin heading that, that group. Uh, and I'm strongly supporting, Kreslin and all the work that she's doing, looking forward to a lot of great work.
Great.
I do have one question that I forgot to ask. It mentions in your presentation that the 35,000 will be used toward the two goals that you have. And then you say that the total budget that you have is 80,000. Where does the rest of the 80,000 come from?
We will have to use our membership, the money that we get from membership that goes into our general fund. And then when we are able to put events, the leftover from events, the nets go into our general fund. So we'll do it that way.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let me open this up to public forum just to see if there's any comment on this, Jessica. I don't think
I don't have any hands raised. No.
Great. Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, would anyone like to entertain a motion?
I move that we approve the requests of the Chamber of Commerce, Coastside Chamber of Commerce.
I'll second.
Can we take a roll call, please?
Councilmember Rohrbach?
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone?
Yes, and thank you, Kreslin. I'll just say you do represent your members of the chamber well, and going through this 15 months of COVID, we could not have gotten through this without your leadership in the chamber, and so appreciate collaboration, your partnership. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I
Thank
so
you.
appreciate all of you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of ordinances and public hearing segment of our meeting. Any committee updates?
We have none tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any city council reports?
I would like to make a recommendation to agendize on a future council meeting a city policing ordinance. I would like to stimulate discussion between the council and the public. I think this is a timely item that we need to get on the agenda soon. I'd like to have a concrete piece of proposed legislation so we know what we're talking about. I would like it to include an ordinance that includes pretextual traffic stops, the duty of the police force to retreat when there's a possibility of injury to civilians. I would like no-knock warrants included in this proposed ordinance and a banning on chokeholds.
Other well, let's see. Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Penrose.
Yeah, I'm not certain that we are ready for an ordinance like this. I would really like to hear a report out from our subcommittee on policing. I would really like to hear something from the general public in our community workshops. We still have another mental health focus group. I agree that an ordinance is critical. I want that ordinance to be as complete and thoroughly thought through as we can make it. In order for it to be effective, we need all the information we can get, and we're still in the process of gathering that information. That's my sense, that it's not quite time.
Right. And if that, just for the public's knowledge, that public safety subcommittee that we do have consists of council members Ruddick and Jimenez. Councilmember Ruddick.
I think Joaquin had his hand up first.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember Jimenez.
Thank you. Actually, I would like to second the motion to have it in the agenda, but I'm also interested in hearing from our community. I think it is something we need to do. We need to talk about. Our community needs to find out. The city of Half Moon Bay to bring a report. With the program like Yanira Serrano Presente being introduced today, you know, to the benefit of our community, I believe this initiative, you know, of policing in our community, it goes on hand with this. So I would like to get the input from our community. I would like to make it available, maybe from a community safety committee to talk about it, how we can bring it forward. And I would like to learn more about it.
Thank you, Councilmember Jimenez. Councilmember Ruddick.
I'm not ready to agendize a discussion about a specific ordinance. I mean, I think I agree with Dr. Penrose that I think it's premature. There's still another mental health meeting. My impression was that staff was coming back to the Public Safety Committee to discuss, you know, further options or approaches beyond, you know, the Yanira Presente. What's possible, like what we can do, given the fact that we're a contract community, and what we can't do, or what we might be able to do, you know, in terms of advocacy, as opposed to not having fiat, you know, decisions over this stuff. So there's still policing issues we have to look at, and that may result in an ordinance, but I'm not going to agree to put on the agenda a citizens ordinance for discussion. I think staff's in the process of developing a lot of information around options, and I want to see that first. And I'd like to actually have the city manager and the city attorney, you know, weigh in on dealing with such a proposal.
Right.
Tonight,
yeah. Well, there's two questions. First of all, there's a protocol question here that I will state my understanding and then get make sure I'm understanding this correctly from Jessica and Catherine here. We have council protocols, and chapter 5 is on meeting agendas. And it discusses who can put an item on an agenda and what it takes. And B1 says a council member may request an item be considered on a future agenda. And if a second council member agrees with the request, staff will prepare a staff report. So my question to you, Catherine, is how does this work? So if 3 council members don't yet want it agendized and would rather see it go before, let's say, the Public Safety Committee, but there are 2 members who do request it be agendized. How do you read our protocols there, just so we're clear?
Yeah, I mean, I would read that as it's agendized. It only does take 2. I guess I would suggest confirming with Councilmember Jimenez if that was a second to add it to the city council agenda or to put it on the subcommittee agenda. I think I heard both things.
To put it on the agenda. It was a second, put it on the agenda. On the,
For the city council or for the subcommittee first?
for the city council.
So then I do hear that as being agendized for the city council. I do want to just make one note. Of course, I received the same ordinance that you all did by email. Haven't had a chance to look at it very closely. But did want to note, what was stated is that, of course, the city is a contract city. So there are constraints in terms of what we can require the police absent actually having our own police force. So I anticipate that when this comes back, you'll be able to have a more robust discussion with some more information about what contract cities are able to do in terms of negotiating their contract versus enacting an ordinance, absent having the police force.
I appreciate that. I understand that you're the expert at what is legal, not legal. My concern is that this proposed ordinance covers the areas that I mentioned as if possible. I feel strongly that we do this. So I understand that you'll need to do this legal research and come up with something that can pass muster. But,
yeah. The issue in terms of the ordinance is that, ordinances need to have, teeth, be enforceable, and to be legislation and to be actually legislative that the council can adopt by ordinance, or, same rules that would apply if it's a voter initiative. It has to be legislative as opposed to administrative. So, absent there being a police force here, it's unclear to me without further research that there's actually, legislation that the council may adopt. And I'm, not prepared to do a full analysis of that tonight, but if it sounds like there are, two of you that want to hear more about that topic, I would be prepared to, provide, legal review of that question and options, for ways to proceed.
Yeah, well, make that 3. I'm very, I only glanced at it, but I certainly had questions about what's enforceable and what's not, and want to make sure something is worded in a way that makes sense to be enforceable.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree.
Okay, any other comments on that? We don't have to take a vote on this. It's
I do have a couple comments, Mayor, just for your consideration.
Sure.
One on the process of bringing it forward to the full council. If that's what the rules say, and that's what our city attorney concurs, if that's what it says, then that's what we'll follow. But I think it does raise into question why we would have a public safety subcommittee. Your council created the public safety subcommittee for the purpose of vetting these very topics. And so I think that then becomes an interesting question of the purpose of the public safety subcommittee. So I wanted to raise that point.
Well, yep.
And then the second point is, given the nature in which this is coming forward, I do think the council needs to be conscious of the fact that we have a capacity here of the workload that we can keep up with. And if the council wants us to do all this work, then that means that there are other things that we cannot work on.
Right.
So we just went through a priority setting. We're bringing back our work plan next meeting. And this would add a substantial amount of work to our plates. And so we then need to not work on other things, and the council can certainly direct me on what things they don't want me to work on, or we can make those decisions.
Well, I think that's a good point. So I'm going to go back to Harvey and Joaquin, just so I understand. Is there a reason not to allow the subcommittee to take some of that workload first and consult with council on that, versus And then of course, bring it back to agendize after that. So being that there's, a workload on council, and we haven't determined what will be taken off their plates to be able to do all that work. So maybe you could just help us understand that, why you wouldn't put that before a public safety committee first.
If the Public Safety Committee is willing to consider the items that I just mentioned and do it in a timely manner, that is before the end of the month, that seems reasonable to me. It's just that sometimes, I'm not saying this is the case, having committees just prolongs things and doesn't necessarily result in action. And as you can see, I'm really passionate about action here because I think lives are literally at stake. So that's why I'm okay with the Public Safety Subcommittee considering what needs to be done to preserve life, as long as it just doesn't become an exercise in writing papers instead of actually doing something.
Well, it would initiate the public comment period because the Public Safety Committee meets in public, right? So there would be that. It would already start that process, I think, and it would also allow time for the Public Safety Committee to get legal opinions from legal counsel as well. And then
I don't foresee that staff can make time this month for the Public Safety Committee. We're in the middle of budget season. We're kicking off the homeless motel citizens advisory committee. We're going to be accepting applications for the redistricting committee, all in the middle of the budget season. We're supposed to be dealing next meeting with our council priority list. People are always at risk. There's always an urgency. There's always the potential for threats. But we've gone a year. We've come up with a program. We're in the middle of the hottest time of the year for staff activity. So I don't foresee it happening in May. I might be wrong about that. But.
And when would you see it being a reasonable time?
You're asking me or
no, Councilmember Ruddick, what do you see as?
I think that's a question for staff. They staff these committees.
Right.
They bring information to us.
Right.
They still are, preparing for this second mental health committee meeting, right. And staffing that and producing information for that.
So let me go back to City Manager Elizabeth Bob. What do you think about that in terms of staffing a subcommittee, something within the, let's say, 5 weeks? So, by mid-June or something like that, is that doable versus getting everything ready for agendizing?
Well, I do agree with Councilmember Ruddick. There is a lot on our plate right now. May 18th, the council meeting is already looking very full. And we're not even finished with the agenda for that one. And then both June meetings, we do have the budget, and on top of that, we're moving into the summer season where we're going to start preparing for Memorial Day and all the work that we had, extra work we had to put into, the increase in tourists that we saw last year. We're expecting the same this year. So I do agree that the workload is there, and we just went through the priority setting workshop, and the council made their priorities, and pretty clear we have more work than we can keep up with. We're doing the best we can. So that said, any time out in the future would be better. I think it is a relevant point that we're systematically working on this issue, and so I'm not sure how smart of an approach it is to kind of tackle something kind of in a reactionary mode. We were directed to form a public safety subcommittee. We were directed to have a series of community meetings. We were directed to implement Llanera Serrano. We're doing all those things, and we're going to come back with some recommendations. And so I am concerned about that and the amount of work that we would do on something and then find out that of course, your city attorney is correct. We cannot legislate a contract that we have with the sheriff. And so, you know, I think it's something to be concerned about in terms of our workload, about how much time we would put into an ordinance that's simply not enforceable.
And I don't see it as a quick turnaround in any case.
Yes.
You know, the discussion alone of how we do traffic stops and what we do traffic stops for, that is a profound policy question, whether we can do it or not, whether it's the sheriff's office. You know, these are important policy things. And the issue of traffic stops bears on all kinds of safety issues. I understand people's fears, but these are policy issues that require vetting and they require discussion. And I, for one, am not going to approve the list that you mentioned in a knee-jerk way without vetting the policy implications. I'm not going to do it. So this is not going to happen this month. And it's not going to happen next month. It's going to have to wait till after the budget and some of these other things that are on our plate, like implementing Yanira Serrano, are complete. And people in the meantime can be thinking about them and their implications, but we're not going to deal with it now or in June. And the timeline will have to be developed after the budget, as far as I'm concerned. I am not going to just knee-jerk pass an ordinance, you know, that big cities are doing because these are the solutions that came forward this year in the heat of the passions of all of us dealing with the various shootings that occurred. Things have policy implications, and if you don't examine them, they come back and bite you in the ass. So I'm not going to do this in a knee-jerk, unreflective way, period.
Councilmember Penrose.
Yeah, I totally agree with Councilmember Ruddock. The issue is way too important for us not to do it in a thorough and complete manner. And that's what we had outlined with our workshops and with our community workshops and community meetings over the issue. We need to hear from the public. I don't want this to be a 5-person discussion about a proposed ordinance that may not even be legal.
Right.
Wasting staff time, wasting my time, and not getting something done that isn't correct. I want public safety to be assured by the time we're done this process. And if it means we have to work on this in July, I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
We've been moving along. We've been holding our workshops. We've been holding our focus groups. Our subcommittee's been meeting. Let's continue with the process that is working.
I agree with that, Councilmember Jimenez.
Well, I am very interested in sharing this proposed ordinance with the Public Safety Committee. You know, I want them to take a look at it. I'm very interested in this ordinance for several reasons. Like Harvey mentioned, you know, taking action, you know, in some of these things, you know, I like to take action. Like I said, you know, there's several reasons. Dr. Penrose, Councilmember Penrose, you know, mentioned it's very important for us to have an ordinance like this, you know, to look at it thoroughly, you know, to make sure it's something that we want to implement in our community. So it's about listening from our community, have our community look into this, learn about it. But I think for me, the first step to take is to share this with the Public Safety Committee. Take a look at it, you know, and hear from them what they think about it. You know, from there we'll move forward to the next step. You know, about how an ordinance like this, if it's legal, you know, could be implemented in a community like Half Moon Bay. I know we have a contract with the sheriff's department, right? But today you heard from RJ, you know, about some of the things that he goes through every day. You're our community. So I am interested, you know, to look deep into this, and I wouldn't wanna lose sight of it. I wanna make sure that it's available for our community. And with that, like I said, first step is for safety, uh, uh, public safety committee, you know, to take a look at it.
Thank you, Councilmember Jimenez. And
Members of
Here
the community, are there any hands raised from the public to speak to this matter?
I think, yeah, that's public forum is closed. Thank you, Councilmember Rohrbeck. Okay, so I'm hearing from now 4 members, if I'm getting this correct, that it makes very good sense that this go before our Public Safety Committee first. That's why we have it. We'll get some determinations about what's legal and not before we start even discussing the actual content, getting that those determinations, so we won't decide on things that will have to get reversed later because they're not legal. So
exactly. So the Public Safety Committee should first get an opinion from the city attorney about what can and can't be done.
Right.
And then, you know, we start considering related issues.
Okay.
So, if I could just get one more piece of clarification, I don't mean to beat this one, but initially, Councilmember Rohrbeck, when you proposed the item you had in mind, you proposed like 5 or 6 items that you wanted included in this ordinance that you wanted to bring back. Then, of course, there was a conversation about a draft ordinance that some of you received today. So I just want to be crystal clear in terms of what you're asking us to look at. Are you asking us to look at the draft ordinance that was received by some of you today, or the list of things? Do you want us to research the list of things that you mentioned verbally?
The list of things that were considered in the ordinance, not necessarily the exact language of the ordinance, but the.
Well, then I'm going to need very clear direction then on what you want. So, for example, I think you said, I might want to make sure I get it right, contextualized traffic stops. I need to know what you mean by that if you want us to research that. What's that?
Pretextual, not contextual.
I'm sorry, I misheard you then. So pretextual. So what exactly would you like us to look into and come up with under that category?
Traffic stops that are not directly related to public safety. Okay. The ordinance that was emailed to everybody includes examples of traffic stops that are and aren't directly related to public safety. So that would be one topic that I would like addressed in a proposed ordinance.
Right, but are you asking for that whole ordinance to be examined by the Public Safety Committee? Because they're not just examples. They're saying this is prohibited, this isn't. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it's clarification.
And that's why I need the clarification. I mean, if we go off the draft ordinance, at least we know exactly what we're researching and what we're looking at and what we're providing our input on. If we're starting from something like that ordinance, then I really need clarity. I mean, in terms of like what constitutes a traffic stop in the name of safety and not. I can't be the judge of that. I need to be clear what you're what you want us to look at. I mean, so yeah, I agree. It would be easier if we just took the draft ordinance and said, that's what we'll follow. But if you want us to approached it a different way. I just need to be clear.
My only concern is if the city attorney determines that there's another way to implement the content or the intent of some of these draft ordinance lines, then I would be okay with that.
Okay.
I just, okay.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
I got it. Yeah. So start with the ordinance, but if we see that something's problematic and then actually come up with a solution that meets the intent, but is even better potentially, then that we would have that flexibility. But start with the draft that you received. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think my direction is clear as well in terms of what I'm being asked to bring forward to the subcommittee. So I'm flexible on timing, and I think we can get that scheduled, with the city manager and the subcommittee members.
Good.
Okay, so we have direction now. Everyone satisfied? So we will be bringing this first before the Public Safety Committee to consider, and understanding that after they do that initial research, this will get agendized. Correct? Good. Okay. I think that's it for the evening then. Thank you, everyone, for discussing difficult topics at the end here, and appreciate everybody listening to each other and having the conversation.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.